What the fuck? Hi. Okay, so things are a little jank. Give me a second. I'm still technically setting up. I thought about not going live, but here we are. I'm trying to be productive. Let me see. Where is... these? Okay, so what I need to do is adjust this out a little bit more. There we go. And then I can move my model. Oh, okay. I moved my model more than I realized. Model? Okay. Hello. Hi. We're doing a co-working stream. My life is in shambles. That's about it, honestly. I do need to go pee real quick. But we're gonna be watching some YouTube videos while I draw. Yeah, I'm still kind of figuring out the logistics of having it set up. Because on the Steam Deck is what I'm running the game and the YouTube videos on. But I'm drawing on the tablet that I usually use as a secondary monitor. So, yeah. I will be right back. I can at least put the music back on for you guys. That way you have something to listen to while I go potty. Oh, I'll show you my new BRB screen, actually. Wait. I added thingies. Hey, buddy. Why do you do these things? Okay. Hi. Life update. I got frustrated. So I closed the game. I know, blasphemy. We're just gonna do this old school, and I have a to-do list. I have a to-do list in front of me. Um, so yeah, I give up. What did Zella do? He didn't do anything. I'm having a rough day. I feel like doo doo. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I kind of also sound like doo doo. Um, and I'm trying to make myself not be a ball of depression in my bed all day. So, my body is acting like I'm sick, but I haven't. I've checked myself for a fever, and I don't have a fever at all. Um, so I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure in general. So yeah, my throat's not hurting anymore, which is nice. But I have a huge nasal drip that is really annoying because I keep thinking that I am having a nosebleed when I'm not. Uh but also just in general does not feel nice. I don't know. I might have like a sinus infection, or I don't know. Body is bodying and pollen or something. Yeah, so up till now it's been relatively cool this summer in comparison to what I'm used to from living in Mississippi for so long. And so I think my body might be having a reaction to that cuz it's only just now been getting into like the 90s. And we keep having these really crazy fucking thunderstorms come through like in the evening. So I think the change in pressure back and forth has just been fucking with my sinuses. So yeah. But I think it's also I kind of ran myself into the ground the last 2 weeks. Um don't recommend doing that, by the way. Uh so I think my body is also just like, bitch, stop. Which is fair. Minus the part where I get like depressed and feel so tired that I don't get out of bed. um because unfortunately those things work hand in hand. So I'm gonna put a green screen on here, and I haven't gotten out of bed yet either. That's fair. But see, the problem is that I was supposed to work today. I did not work today. And I also stayed in bed until like I think like 12. So it's just I don't know. I'm messing up my own routine, which is messing up my mood too. So I'm trying to, even if I'm obviously not like I'm not working at this point, um trying to at least get things done so that I'm not just sitting around being sad. But yeah, I feel like I'm sick. Um which is pretty homophobic if I do say so myself. But yeah, let me put the filter on this so you guys don't have to stare at the green. We're gonna watch some YouTube together. Yeah. 1 second. Where is. No, I don't need audio. I need effect. Sorry. Camera is where I will be, but I need to turn this on. So I gotta go over here. Let's see, chroma key. Chroma key. Okay. Yippee! We did it! We did it! Yay! Okay. And now I can open Clip Studio. But yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna work on a commission I got going, and some art prints in the works. I just wanted to have YouTube up just because I get really quiet when I work, and so um Zealot recommended me a couple different channels that do either like video essays or like deep dive type videos. um that way I can use those whenever I'm doing my co-working streams. So as Domino's fault for being cuddly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's also part of it is like Ryder doesn't encourage me staying in bed either. He he will literally like get on to me about it. Like he sits at the door and waits for me to get up and he's like, "Mom, why are you not getting up?" But yeah, I'll go look. Let me snooze these ads because I haven't really done anything yet. Open S back up. We can probably do a window. Close that one. That one. Oh, I didn't mean to close both of them. Whoopsies. Two high seconds and I'm ready to go. Okay. Don't know how that looks for y'all. Hopefully it looks okay. I was trying to make it so that it fits a little better. And then I'm gonna hide my little guy in the same little area. Okay. Sure, bud. Can you not? Yeah, please, Windows. This is your daily reminder that I fucking hate Windows 11, specifically. Now I'm kind of curious. Where's my super suit? I was thinking about checking my temperature, but I don't know where my thermometer is. Well, there it is. I don't feel feverish, but my head hurts. My head hurty. But yeah. Is this a full screen button? Yeah!
Stay tuned at the end of this episode to find out how you can get tickets to see The Prince, a new theatre show coming to the Southwark Playhouse in London this September.
This September.
Hello, my name's Abigail. Welcome to Philosophy Tube, a show about ideas. On tonight's episode, we're going to look at some true crime. I've got my makeup ready and my relatable girl next door influencer personality, and I'm ready to take you on an exciting journey through the dark, seedy underbelly of Detroit property taxes in the early 2000s. For real though, it is actually fascinating and quite dark. If you own a house, you've got to pay taxes on it every year. How much you pay depends on how much it's worth. If you have a really nice house, you pay more. If you live in an old ruin, you pay less. Or at least, that's how it's supposed to work. But
Wait. I borked it somehow. I don't know how I borked it, but I borked it. Give me a second. This button? This button. Okay, I fixed it. I was like, wait, why does it look funny? Why does it look funny? It's because I put it on there twice. Because it's sharing my screen. Can you like, can you? I don't. I hope you guys came here ready for the only the best content. Okay. Oh shit, wait. Is there a way I can make it stay on top? Yeah. On top. Now I can put it over the taskbar. Okay. Okay, now I can play it. Computer's having a second though. Sorry if it's really tiny for you guys. I'm trying not to just literally steal people's content. But I enjoy listening to video essays while I work on stuff. Okay, there we go. But yeah, if you guys want to look up any of these videos, they're all free on YouTube. I just picked one that sounded interesting. I haven't watched a lot of Philosophy Tube stuff, but the stuff I have watched of hers is really fun. And really educational. So, and I figured this one would be fun to chat about on stream while I work, just cuz I I fucking hate societal rules. A lot of them are dumb. A lot of societal expectations are, I just don't understand them. I don't understand a lot of the uses or a lot of the respect that people have for like certain rules and regulations on things. But that's something that I've always been told has to do with the fact that I'm neurodivergent. I don't know how much of that's actually true, but I just don't understand kind of like what I usually call like normie culture. I just don't get it. And not to mention, like there are things in modern society that we have brought over from older times that we didn't necessarily need to. So, you know, hot takes, I guess. Not really actually that hot if you know me and you know my opinions, but I'm kind of wondering if I should put it on just chatting while I draw. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm waiting on Clip Studio to load. I'm gonna take taking some Mucinex to hopefully help the sinus pressure. I need to refill my water. Blech. Okay. Alrighty. Let me. I do love that. Like this has been already like almost 40 minutes of just me figuring my life out. But we're resilient. We're resilient. Damn it. Let me pull up the DM that I got from Bringles. for this commission. And then we can get started. Yes, I know you want me to give nitro to somebody, but concept Discord, I'm poor. Void burrito. Okay. Okay, I'll turn my brightness up because it's getting to be bright outside. But yeah. Okay. Should be able to just go ahead and start it.
Starting in 2009, the city of Detroit suddenly decided that a lot of old, run-down houses in poor neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods, were actually worth loads of money and raised the property taxes on them by a huge amount. A lot of residents couldn't afford the new taxes, so they got their homes foreclosed on, about 100,000 homes in total. And obviously this made them miserable, stressed, poor, homeless, and even dead. And it was illegal. Michigan has a law on the books that says authorities can't value a home for tax purposes at more than 50% of its market value. And many of the residents weren't supposed to be paying any taxes anyway because they were living below the poverty threshold. So double illegal. The truest crime there is. But the law was just ignored. Even after the evidence came out that this was illegal, city officials said, well, just pay your taxes, you bums. And if you don't, you get evicted. And what are you supposed to say to that? You gonna hire a lawyer? Well, how can you afford one? Because the city can afford a great lawyer. Now they've pocketed all the cash they got from selling your house.
It's free real estate.
It's free real estate, man.
The government of Detroit and Wayne County, Michigan,
this shit's crazy.
Stole tens of thousands of houses from poor people, mainly poor black people, despite the fact that they were allegedly living in a democratic system where there were rules in place specifically to prevent that very thing. How did this happen? What does it tell us about the real nature of that system? What has happened to the social contract? To answer that, we're going to learn what the social contract is, what its weaknesses are, and then what's happening to it today. If you enjoyed tonight's performance, you can sign up at patreon.com/philosophytube to pledge a couple of dollars a month to support free educational material like this. But I don't think that relatable girl next door is really the appropriate aesthetic for a true crime of this magnitude. Since we're taking on a devilishly difficult case, we are going to need a devilishly difficult lawyer.
Okay. Oh, cool. She's got like an actual quill.
Hey there. I'm Trixie Mephistopheles from the law firm Beelzebub, and Jones. I'll be preparing your briefs. Here's the deal. The social contract is an idea that's turned up in various philosophers' works over the last 350 years. If I explain all of them in detail, we'll be here till Armageddon. As a demon, I have forever, but as a lawyer, I charge by the hour. So let me give you the
That's real as fuck.
We live, it has been said, in a society.
True.
How did that happen? Well, philosophers who subscribe to this social contract idea like to imagine a time before society existed, when there were no rules or laws yet. They call it the state of nature. What exactly the state of nature was like depends on who you read. The English philosopher Thomas Hobbes said that it was pretty hellish. Life in the state of nature was solitary, nasty, poor, brutish, and short, a war of all against all. Later philosophers, like Frenchman Jean-Jacques Rousseau, said it might not have been so bad because humans have a natural tendency towards compassion. John Locke, another name we'll be hearing a lot, so that there were
Yeah.
still some rules, some morality placed in humans by God. Bottom line,
There
the
was
state
some
of nature was whatever came naturally to human beings, which could have been a lot of things.
I was gonna say,
Society
depends
is
on what you
everything
call
that was
natural.
built on top. In the state of nature,
Good lord.
people had some freedoms that they don't have now. For instance, if somebody steals your stuff in a state of nature, you can go and clobber them. You can't do that now. There's a justice system that's supposed to handle it, unless you live in Detroit. But because the state of nature has some downsides, like anybody can clobber you and it's hard to get stuff done, people came together and agreed to live in a society. That agreement is called the social contract. This is a very important detail, so it's worth making sure that you get it. The idea is that humanity's natural state is freedom, that nobody is born having political authority over anybody else. One of Rousseau's most famous lines was, "Man is born free and everywhere he is in chains." The first 4 words there are, man is born free. That's going to be important in a moment. The outcome of the social contract, though, is that people gave up some of their natural freedoms in exchange for the benefits of living in a society. Like, okay, you can't clobber anyone who takes your stuff anymore, but on the flip side, you get a justice system and medicine and opera and mobile phones and pork pies and all the other things that humans enjoy. In particular, John Locke said one of the great things you get out of a social contract is your private property gets secured. Again, unless you live in Detroit. There are a few things hidden in the fine print here that depend on who you read, like who made this agreement. Hobbes said it was individuals. Locke and Rousseau said it was families. And what exactly did they agree on? Some writers say the social contract created the rules of morality, or governments, or laws, or specific institutions. There was a modern philosopher called John Rawls who had his own version, but we're not going to worry about him for today. So that's the basic idea in a nutshell. You've got your 3 main ingredients. The state of nature, where everyone's naturally free, the people who came together, and the agreement they made to limit their freedom in exchange for civilization. Now, you're very clever, so you've probably already realized that that's a load of bollocks. That never happened.
Yeah.
That's completely made up. And yes, people have been saying that since the beginning. Here's Scottish philosopher David Hume writing in 1752.
Were you to preach in most parts of the world that political connections are founded altogether on voluntary consent or a mutual promise, the magistrate would soon imprison you as seditious for loosening the ties of obedience. If your friends did not before shut you up as delirious for advancing such absurdities. Almost all the governments which exist at present, or of which there remains any record in story, have been founded originally either on usurpation or conquest or both.
Yep.
In fact, even if that whole story about the state of nature was true, so what? If your ancestors agreed to live in a society, what does it have to do with you? When you were born, was there somebody there from the government going, "Do you accept the terms and conditions?" No. Some philosophers, like Rousseau, tried to get around this by saying that if you enjoy the benefits of society, you implicitly agree to live by its rules. Like, you might not have signed a literal contract, but by continuing to enjoy video games and hummus, you do sign an invisible one. And if you don't like it, there's the door. But again, Hume says that's bollocks.
Can we seriously say that a poor peasant or artisan has a free choice to leave his country when he knows no foreign language or manners and lives from day to day by the small wages which he acquires? We may as well assert that a man, by remaining in a vessel, freely consents to the dominion of the master, though he was carried on board while asleep and must leap into the ocean and perish the moment he leaves her.
Agreement is not how society was formed, and it's clearly not how society works now. However, that's not the point. It's not meant to be an accurate historical story. Social contract theory is meant to give us a nice test to evaluate the societies we do live in. We can look at a government, or an institution, or even a specific piece of legislation, and ask ourselves, is this the sort of thing that free, equal people would agree to live under? And if the answer to that is no, then we have good reason to reject it. With that in mind, you can maybe see how, from one perspective, this was kind of a radical idea at the time. Human beings are born free and equal, and governments are only legitimate if you agree to them? That kind of talk could spark a revolution. The 17th century philosopher
Crazy.
Robert Filmer said
It's
people
crazy.
aren't born free and equal. That's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Children aren't born equal to their parents. The father naturally has authority. And in the same way, the king naturally has authority over his people. To say that they're born equal is borderline treason. Filmer was very into the idea of dads having power. He wrote a book about his ideas that was literally called Patriarcha. If this were 2019 YouTube, I'd make a joke like, "Step on me, daddy." But I think culturally we're past that now. Social contract theory says that governments should be established by agreement, not force or religion. And that is also a revolutionary idea. There's a bit of a battle for the human soul going on here. Because according to Rousseau, again, human beings can come together and agree and make progress. Government can set people free to do that if it's arranged in the right way. But some of Rousseau's contemporaries said, no, you've forgotten about sin. Humans are inherently wicked.
Yeah.
They have a tendency towards evil. The job of government is to keep a lid on that. It should be run by people who know what purity and faith is, not set everyone free to indulge their sinful desires. And this battle continues to this day. There are still people who say, no, the right to govern does not come from the people, at least not ultimately. It comes from God. And so on behalf of God, we will take control of society, whether people agree or not. Whether it's Christian nationalists in the USA trying to overturn elections, or the Taliban and ISIS, this philosophical issue is not ancient history. It's happening right now. Speaking of history, though, here's some context that might help ground all this abstract theory. Robert Filmer and Thomas Hobbes both lived through the English Civil War, a very bloody and bitter conflict between the forces of King Charles I and Parliament that was very much about this question: who has the right to govern? Filmer was on the king's side, which turned out to be a bad decision, because in 1649, Charles I had his head cut off. When a British monarch dies, that's when the English are at their most dangerous, because suddenly anything is possible. A dude named Oliver Cromwell takes over and decides to murder everyone in Ireland. Some random guy named Gerard Winstanley invents communism on a hill. They banned Christmas for a while. It was a busy time for me. But 11 years later, everyone calms down a little bit. Cromwell's dead now, so Charles's son, Charles, becomes King Charles II. Now, one thing you need to know is that everyone in England at this time hates Catholics. Don't like them. Why are you having your religious services in Latin? Speak English, like Jesus did. Anti-Catholic suspicion is rife. Senator McCarthy has a list of Catholics in government. There's debate about whether Catholics should be allowed in women's toilets. The police are stopping people in the streets like, is that incense? And they're going, no, it's weed, I swear. So everything is already really normal. And then in 1685, Charles II dies as well, leaving no legitimate heir. He does have a very special illegitimate daughter, but she doesn't count. So his younger brother James becomes King James II. And there's an immediate problem, because James is Catholic. But wait, it's okay.
Oh, no!
His daughter, Mary, who is next in line for the throne, is Protestant. So it's all fine. It's going to be okay. Unless he has a son. Oh, he just had a son. I know.
The son's Catholic.
Time
no!
for England to become even more normal. Okay, what if the prince of a completely different country came over and we just made him the king instead? So they did that. In 1688, William of Orange, who was Prince of the Netherlands, came over and kicked James off the throne in the Glorious Revolution, thus ending the reign of the Stuart royal family. which is why the descendants of Charles's illegitimate daughter are making YouTube videos now instead of living in Buckingham Palace. I could have been a princess, but no, my great uncle James just had to be a Catholic.
Yeah.
And this is the context in which John Locke publishes his famous books, the two treatises of government. The first book, which hardly anybody reads now, is a sentence-by-sentence refutation of Robert Filmer, Love the Pettiness. The second one, the really famous one, contains all of Locke's arguments about how governments should be formed by people agreeing. Locke supported the Glorious Revolution. He thought that James's failures as a king meant that he had reneged on the social contract, so the people had the right to take up arms and remove him. And it had a big impact. Less than a century later, across the Atlantic, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and a lot of my most famous clients read John Locke, and they were like, whoa, this guy's based. We should do a revolution. We should get rid of King George. And then sing a musical about it.
Hamilton.
I tell the story of this context partly because it's interesting and partly so you understand this philosophy did not come from nowhere. It was written in a particular time and a particular place, and it bears the marks of its origin. And that is going to be very important now as we turn to some of the modern criticisms of social contract theory, starting with some radical feminism.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, girl, eat that apple. Hell yeah. Dude, I hate eating apples. Like just regular. Like, I like to chop them into slices. Sexploitation.
This book is The Sexual Contract by Carol Pateman.
She
It's a
looks so
classic of
pretty,
second-wave
though.
feminism from 1988. Pateman studied social contract theory, and she has a few notes. In this section of the video, I'd like to take a detailed look at her work. You may not agree with everything she says. I certainly don't, but it will be provocative. Pateman's general thesis is that the story of the social contract, this supposedly radical idea about free people agreeing, is first of all a lie, but secondly,
Okay.
it hides the truth about how society really operates. In particular, as a feminist, she focuses on the ways in which what happens to women gets buried in the fine print. She says there's the official social contract, and then underneath, there's a second sexual contract. The hidden rules which give men, the male sex, political control over women, the female sex. This idea of there being a second hidden contract has been really influential in the last 40 years of philosophy, especially in critical race theory, as we'll see later on. Remember this stated nature, the idea we talked about earlier? It's whatever comes naturally to human beings and society is everything built on top. Well, Pateman points out that a lot of the classic theorists made some pretty big and pretty political assumptions about the nature of women, like a lot of men did back then. John Locke said that women are natural subjects. We're born to do what we're told. Rousseau said that we can't be rational and objective like men are because we're too bimbo-brained. Even though the state of nature is supposed to be before society,
He makes a good point.
there's some cross-contamination going on here. According to the classic theorists, the social contract
That's
is
interesting,
something
though.
that men do. Men agree to make society. Women can't. That's just our nature. So we get to live in it. Specifically, we get to inhabit the roles that we are naturally suited for, according to men. We get to
We're
be
watching
their wives
Philosophy Tube.
and their mothers. And that's a crucial detail. Pateman says this wasn't an accidental oversight. These philosophers didn't just forget that women existed. The reason we're not at the table is because we're what's on the menu. Part of society's job, she says, is to regulate men's access to our bodies for sex and reproduction. Every man is endowed by his creator with an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of pussy. The hidden rule of the sexual contract is that women exist for
men.
And, she continues,
Okay.
if you assume that women exist for men, that we're naturally suited only for the domestic world, not the political one, then marriage is the legal embodiment of that assumption. Think of things like women being given away by our fathers at a wedding, taking our husband's last name, promising to obey, women not being allowed to own property when they're married, husbands being legally
life,
allowed
liberty,
to
and the
rape
pursuit
and
of
beat
pussy.
their wives. Pateman says
God.
the institution of marriage is clearly designed to express and reinforce the assumption that women are secondary. Now you might want to say, hang on a minute. Husbands used to be able to do all that stuff, but marriage has been reformed. It's no longer legal to beat your wife, for instance. So is it still inherently patriarchal? Pateman says, yes. If you strip out all the patriarchal stuff, it wouldn't be marriage anymore. It'd just be a contract for sexual exclusivity or cohabitation or whatever. She says marriage would be obsolete without patriarchy. But again, you might want to come back and say some women choose to get married. Some of us want to be actress/YouTuber girl bosses taking over the world, but some of us want to be trad wives and stay at home with the apron and the red lip and the thigh highs and the cat ears. That's what makes some women happy. So is it still patriarchal if you do it voluntarily? This question, is it empowering if you do it voluntarily, is something that women have been asking ourselves for decades about all sorts of things, like marriage, but also wearing revealing clothing or being a sex worker, which Pateman also does not like. Funnily enough, there is another academic text that just came out by one of my favorite philosophers, which addresses this same question. It's Kim Petras' new album, Slut Pop.
I mean, I'm not a trad wife, but yes, I am
On the one
married.
hand, it's about a woman exerting control over her sexuality as she sings, I'm a superpower bitch, so power, empowerment. But on the other hand, her superpower is making men and the album was produced by Dr. Nick. So is it also reinforcing the sexual contract? Maybe. A lot of big feminist questions being asked here. It's a very rich text. We might say that the album is a seminal work. Pateman says, doing it voluntarily, that's how they get you. You do it voluntarily, but even so, the institution of marriage still reflects the idea this is the only kind of contract you're capable of making. The story about free, equal people agreeing hides the reality of the exploitation. But wait, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
She's
oh, God.
also very critical of employment contracts for the same reason. Imagine that there's a 50s dude named Bert Mansley, and every morning he goes to work in the Chrysler dealership from 9 to 5, and every evening he comes home to his catgirl trad wife, and he says, honey, I made $100 today. Bert is, allegedly, a free man. He sells his labor power, his ability to work, to his employer, unlike a slave who is themselves bought and sold. And again, Bert does it all voluntarily. Pateman says, that's bollocks. You can sell your blood or your hair or anything that can be detached from you, but your labor power can't be detached from you. If you think it can, try sending your labor power to work whilst you stay in bed. The idea that we have pieces of ourselves that can be parceled out and sold, like our time or our skills, is, she says, a fiction. Bert isn't free. In exchange for wages, he does as he's told, like a good little boy. The reason he accepts it is because when he comes home, he at least gets to boss around his wife. And so, she says, modern society is not based on free individuals agreeing, as social contract theorists might have us believe. It is based on the economic exploitation of everyone and the sexual exploitation of women. What a way to make a living! So, that's Pateman. And now, some questions. Starting with the big one. For the grand prize of £1 million, what is the definition of woman?
What is it, chat? What is it, chat?
Sex. So who exactly?
What is it, chat? What is it, chat? This is not a threat. What is it, chat? What is it? What's a woman? What's a woman, chat? You guys know, don't you? You guys know, right? Right? You know the difference between a woman and a man, right? You know that there's only two genders, right? What is the definition of a woman? Yes. Pokemon. Understandable. Have a nice day. Oh my god. The problem is that, like, I've had this conversation with Zealot too, like off stream, um, talking about like societal definitions and how a lot of people think that they're helpful, but I don't think they're actually helpful, because whenever you ask somebody what's the definition of a woman, you you're gonna get a different answer from everyone. There might be similarities. There will definitely be differences if you're actually taking like a good group of, varied opinions and different kinds of people from different backgrounds. Um, but it's one of the reasons why, like, even though I enjoy going to pride events and I am open about the fact that, I like women and men and non-binary people, um, and anyone in between, whether you're gender fluid or whatever, um, like, just because I have that definition and I see them as people and treat them as people and find them like attractive does not mean that the next person is going to think of them the same way. Especially whenever we have institutionalized like learning where we're taught by either schools or societies or communities in school or churches, like going to clubs, stuff like that. There's a lot of social influences that I think people don't think about until they're adults or until they're kind of like forming their own opinions, like whenever you're in kind of like that middle school, high school age where you're able to start to form like your own opinions and like starting to have your own definitions of things. It's very frustrating, um because to a degree, you don't want people to lose their individuality in how they define things. But at the same time, it causes the issue of like being able to define things is a key component in like doing things like pride. Like, okay, you want to go to a pride event, but say you don't identify as gay, bi, lesbian, anything like that. You're left with the question of like, okay, well, will I be welcome? And the reality is that even as somebody who goes to pride events and like I'm literally vending at a pride event next weekend, I cannot say that outside of like my interactions with you, you will have a good welcoming time because everybody's going to be different. There are people who are, vocal about like enjoying allies and having people who are allies in their life who are okay with, their homosexuality. But there is always going to be somebody who does not actually agree with that opinion. And a lot of times those people are not vocal about it, but they avoid the subject, especially whenever it comes to the business side of it. A lot of people are not necessarily upfront with their opinions on people, especially because, they're trying to make money. So it's like, okay, I'll take your money, but that doesn't mean I have to like you. Um, which to a degree, protect your peace, but at the same time, it's something that I've had to think a lot about since getting into the business side of crafting and how I present myself and present my business because I am doing my business for fun. I do it because I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy when people get excited seeing my stuff. It makes my day. It makes me very happy. It's very gratifying. But I have had to come to a very like harsh realization that there are a lot of people
that for whatever reason, whether it be, religious background or, where they lived regionally, people always will find a way to be hateful, whether it's quietly, like passive aggressive or otherwise. And it's really frustrating, because it is inherent to humans. Um, but even though it's inherent to humans, it is also considered taboo to talk about those sort of hard subjects with people whenever you first meet them. It's very like, oh, well, we don't talk, I don't like gay people, but like I don't hate them, I'm not gonna like hate crime them, which is something that kind of like my parents used to say a lot. And I would always just look at them because it's like, okay, you say that you don't hate gay people, but you do not vocalize ever having gay people that you socialize with, either passively or like they're really close to you. So as a kid, that's where I ended up divulging myself, being like, okay, well, my parents might not be okay with this, but I've never had any issues with gay people that I've met. Um, which is another thing that I also learned about that people don't talk about often, is like that same issue with like perception when it comes to like race. Is that one thing that I get a lot from people when they meet me, especially IRL, is I grew up around a lot of Black folks. My mom, I don't know if it's mostly Black staff at her clinic anymore, but whenever I grew up, she worked with mostly Black ladies, and she also the town she went to school with a lot of Black kids. And so we there are times where like I can carry myself in a way that sounds more Black rather than white. And I have had many people, mostly positive reactions, but they very much get caught off guard, because it's that same thing of like a Black person interacting with me. They don't, if they don't know me, they don't know if it's going to be a good interaction. They don't know if it's going to be awkward, or and it's very hard to convey to people, because you can't just put I've had this thought about like conventions. I can't just wear a sign that says, "Hey, I'm a safe person. If you need help, tell me." Because the reality is that in society, anyone could wear that sign. It could be a PDF file, it could be somebody doing the sex offender shuffle, it could be anyone. Just because I wear a sign that says, "Hey, I'm a good person, let me know if you need help," doesn't mean that like they know my intentions. And so it's just very interesting to me. I've been learning a lot on the sociology side since starting my business, and learning how, there are things that I could post like fuck ICE, but the reality is that like I don't like ICE, and I don't want to post fuck ICE solely because I don't want to give them that kind of attention. Um and not that I disagree with people that are, helping out, people who are being like literally fucking harassed and hurt by ICE. It's a problem, but I I agree with society in the sense of we need to have some level of rules or like a system. Like I think it's very important that we have a justice system, but there are always going to be shortcomings, and there's always, whether it's, you know, sometimes it's simple stuff. Sometimes it's just like, oh, it's like embezzlement. That embezzlement is one of those things that's like, we know that that's very illegal. We know that that's a felony. Like, you will get put in jail for doing that. But there are a lot of times that, things like embezzlement aren't considered that big of a deal to people who have enough money to pay their bail. And there are a lot of shortcomings, and I don't think that I wouldn't define myself as an anarchist just because I think that I think we as humans need a system. but that also does not mean that I agree with everything. um I, especially as a white person, I have witnessed a lot of people who are not necessarily racist when you're out in public or whatever, but the moment that they think they're in like a safe or private space, they will just casually drop slurs or, you know, talk bad about people, calling people names, very inappropriate things. And it's always very uncomfortable because a lot of people that there are just a lot of people in this world who hide what their actual opinions are. They don't wear their heart on their sleeve. And while I understand protecting your peace, I also believe that you should be honest and upfront with people, because the reality is that if somebody is actually super fucking racist, I don't want to associate with that person. Like I have had this argument with my dad before because he has friends from high school that were and are still super racist, and I'm just like, "Hey dad, I'm not comfortable with this person." And he's like, "Oh, well, I've been friends with them for like 30 years." And I'm like, "I don't care. They could buy me $1 million house. I still wouldn't care. Like, this is non-negotiable. Like, this is just not cool." Like, you know? And it's just very frustrating because a lot of those people are also like, it's not even that they're inherently like bad people. I mean, they make bad choices, but like a lot of the times, 90% of the day, they're just your average person. Like, you wouldn't know anything different until you got them into, you know, in my specific situation, I went out to the 4th of July to the lake that my grandfather lives on, and instead of staying at my grandpa's house, we were staying at my dad's friend's house across the lake. And I when I tell you that it was like midnight and I was sunburnt to a crisp from the earlier day, I went to go get like fucking like bugles and like cheese whiz from the kitchen, and I heard his friend sitting outside cuz I went to check on my mom. My mom was sitting on their patio smoking, and she was letting me know that apparently his friend and her husband were fucking skinny dipping, and I just heard one of them talking about that little, not a word I'm gonna say. And I was just like, excuse me. Like, I didn't say that to her because I was all of like, I want to say I was like maybe 14. And mind you, we were at this woman's house. So I was very immediately like, oh shit. Like, I don't think I was meant to hear that. But yeah, they helped me in a dark time and they're just the worst people. Yeah. No, yeah, it was the N word. She also used some other colorful language that, bless my mom, I had to ask her what those words meant. And I cannot repeat them for the life of me, mostly because I don't remember them anyway. But basically she was using other slurs for Hispanic people as well. And I was just like, wow. Wow. Wowie wow wow. And so it's just like, there are just some people, man, and it's the only reason that I it's really the only reason that I hate societal stuff, is because I feel like most of the societal rules that people abide by work to benefit people like that so that they can like hide behind, being a nice housewife or being your friend from high school, or and I just wish people were more upfront about that, because it's one of the reasons why I haven't been back to any of the Pride. They do like Pride board gaming nights out here, and I haven't been back to them because whenever I went by myself, everything was fine. Like, I didn't have any issues. Everybody was a little awkward, but that was, I kind of expect that. They've never met me. But then I brought Zealot with me, and they were immediately like side-eyeing him and like giving him like death glares. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I know that Zealot looks like your stereotypical like cis het man, but like, it just irks me that there are so many people in the LGBT community who are like, oh, you don't look gay enough, so we don't like you. And I'm just like, okay, I know I have an undercut. But I'm gonna tell you something, chat, that nobody ever believes, but I'm gonna tell you something. I got this fucking undercut because I get overheated. I did not get this undercut to be gay. Like, there are so many people that, like, assume I'm a lesbian now just because of my hair. And it's so funny to me because then they see me with Zealot and they're just like, oh, she's just like, she's a trad wife kind of thing. And I'm just like, brother, it's 2026. Like, it's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. Moral of the story, the definition of women is anybody who identifies or wants to be a woman. That is how I define women. If you are somebody who wants to be a woman, who wants to, you know, dress different, act different, do makeup, do hair, you are a woman. And I think the reason that I have that specific definition is because I support a lot of drag queens, and I know there's a lot of confusion sometimes with drag queens of, you know, why do they do a performative feminine like look, you know, because there's a look to drag queens, you know, it's a type of makeup that has developed. And the way that I see it is that a lot of times with most of the drag queens I've seen, they're usually men. And they're usually men. Usually gay men, the ones that I've seen, and they just enjoy doing it as an outlet. They do it a lot. A lot of them will describe it similar to kind of like what people do with cosplay. You're playing a character, you're dressing up as the character, and a lot of times the characters are stereotypes. And there are a lot of people who will criticize drag queens for that, but the reality is that it's a performative art, you know? Like there are a lot of people who get really offended really easily when anyone vocalizes any opinion, and like people can't just have fun. Like, I literally went to a burlesque show not this past weekend but the weekend before, and one of the burlesque like dancers literally did a like Tigger the Tiger from Winnie the Pooh. She did an entire performance themed around his bouncy song. And so it's like, yes, it's adult it's adult shows, you know, but at the reality is just like adults can have fun too. Like, why as adults do we have to be serious all the time, you know? It's fucking crazy. Is it bad to say I've seen straight men who do drag that really wish they weren't straight? No, that's real as fuck. That's real as fuck. I've seen some straight men like on TikTok who will do their drag makeup, and when I tell you that I have never been able to properly glue down my eyebrows, I don't know how they fucking do it. I don't know how they do it. Also, ads are incoming. That's why I was trying to like wrap it up. But no, I have the glue sticks and I have never been able to get my eyebrows to stay down whenever I've tried to do drag looks. And it's so funny because like I will look at these men who make TikToks claiming they've never done drag, and I'm just like, bitch, what do you mean? Because you look good. You may be straight, but is the character you're playing. And yeah, no, exactly. And drag is so much fun. Like, it's so like it at the end of the day, like, I don't know, I just don't get hating on people. I'm just not a hater, man. I guess I should be more hate coded by by like the standards that a lot of other people say. It's like, Ducky, why don't you hate more people? It's like, I don't know. I just mind my business, bro. Like, I just, like, I'm just a guy. I'm not here to dictate other people. Like, the only other person in this world that I dictate is my husband. And even then, it's more of like a heavy suggestion because he's a brat and he will straight up just say no. I'll be like, hey, can you stop crop dusting me in Walmart? And he'll be like, no, toot. And you know what? That's his fucking right. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of pussy. That's the real one. I do unironically kind of want to make a shirt of that now. I kind of do. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna play the video because I'm supposed to be drawing, but I went off on a tangent.
Is in which category? I can help you out here. We can phone a friend. The Oxford English Dictionary defines woman as... Oh, no way am I touching that one, Chief. Pateman has quite a flexible approach. She says we don't need to obsess about chromosomes or genitals or anything like that to draw out the way in which the meaning of men and women has helped structure major social institutions is not to fall back on purely natural categories. That means that whatever physical sex is, whether it's a biological fact or a social construct or something in between.
Oh, YouTube?
She just wants to talk about how it gets cashed out politically. There are some other clues in Pateman's work that indicate a flexible approach. For instance, she says that marriage is not the only way the sexual contract is enforced. In modern patriarchy, a variety of means are available through which men can uphold the terms of the sexual contract. What is now labeled sexual harassment helps maintain men's patriarchal right in the public world. So enforcing the sexual contract doesn't always involve actual sex. According to Pateman, it is about controlling us for sex and reproduction, but it operates on a more general level. For example, literally, as I was highlighting this section on page 114, I was sitting alone in St. James's Park in London, and a man came up and sat right next to me and tried to chat me up. Told me how I shouldn't wear a COVID mask because I'm too pretty, and that I have really, really beautiful handwriting. He felt entitled to interrupt me, to invade my personal space, and to demand my attention because I'm a woman. He saw me sitting alone, working, and he must have felt on some level, oh, this is here for me. And this flexible general approach has advantages. It means that if somebody can't have children or penetrative sex, like because she's too young or for medical reasons, then according to Pateman, she's still a woman. She still experiences misogyny. She's still assumed to exist for men. And here's where I have to reveal my trap card, so to speak. If this is your first time watching Philosophy Tube and you didn't already know, I'm transgender.
Dun dun dun!
As you've just seen, everything Pateman says should apply to me as well. I get sexually harassed. I experience misogyny. I'm in the political category of woman. Which makes it all the more weird and heartbreaking that the final chapter contains some pretty explicit transphobia. Pateman says that trans women are just men who are pretending, which is false and also bigoted, and she also seems to be assuming that there are only two sexes and they are definitely biological and unchangeable, which, spoilers if you're watching in 1988, turns out that's not true either. But more to the point, that contradicts what...
Yeah, let me go get my time machine real quick.
Having said in chapter 1 that she's only worried about how sex gets cashed out politically, now all of a sudden she seems to be assuming that it is a fact of nature, which means she's made the same mistake she's criticizing. She realized that the state of nature was a political construction, that there was this cross-contamination going on. But at the same time, she seems to think that her view of what nature is has no politics in it and is definitely just the way things are. She writes, the state of nature is drawn by each theorist in a manner that enables him to reach the desired solution, the political solution he has already formulated. And in the margins, I've written, yeah, that's what you're doing. Now, it wasn't okay to be transphobic in 1988, or ever. But I guess we could say that trans studies as a discipline only really started in 87, and it's not her fault that science and philosophy have since moved on. Basically, I'm not trying to cancel Carol Pateman. She's in her 80s now, and she's enjoying a philosopher's retirement, which as I understand it mainly involves drinking hemlock. I bought the 30th anniversary edition of her book, though, because I was hoping she might address some of these issues. There's a new foreword by the author. I thought maybe she might talk about some of the philosophy that trans people have written since then, or that sex workers have written since then, or maybe talk about gay marriage. Like, is a lesbian wedding still inherently patriarchal? That's an interesting question. Unfortunately, the new foreword is about 2 pages and it doesn't really add all that much. So if you are thinking of getting a copy, I'd save your money and just get the original. The reason I bring it up, though, is because Pateman's book is itself a great illustration of the things it is trying to critique. She realized that the state of nature was a political construction. She exposed the hidden rules that enforce subjugation, even as we imagine that society is based on free people agreeing. And she made the same mistakes. But there is some great stuff in here that could go on to inspire something more. And that is exactly what happened.
Aw, yeah, Detroit. Back to Detroit.
We now have everything we need.
Also,
to
no,
return
yeah,
to
I
Detroit.
have the same problem,
Think
Holy,
about
with
what
like
happened.
wanting to be nice.
You'll remember that in 2009, the local government illegally raised property taxes and started evicting people from their homes when they couldn't pay, effectively stealing houses from people who were disproportionately poor and black. In 2014, they did something similar with water prices, jacking the prices up suddenly and disconnecting anyone who couldn't pay. This
Damn.
happened despite the fact there were laws in place that were supposed to stop it. So how come? In 1997, the philosopher Charles Mills wrote a book called The Racial Contract, inspired by Pateman. Remember her idea that women were left out of the social contract, not just as an oversight, but because we were seen as naturally fit for exploitation? Mills says the classic theorists did the exact same thing with people of color. John Locke is a great example. Remember the idea of the state of nature? It's whatever comes naturally to human beings. Society is everything that's built on top. Well, Locke claimed, falsely, that indigenous Americans had no society and no politics and no concept of property before colonization.
Oh yeah, no.
And therefore,
What do you mean? You were trying to tell me that the Native Americans had a society? A society? And they had concepts of thoughts and feelings and monies and trading and what? Crazy. Mind fucking blown. Mind fucking blown. You that's crazy. Ain't no way. You're trying to tell me. Anyway, sorry. I get very upset about Native Americans. I also get really mad at people when they. I don't call them Native Americans because I am trying to be politically correct. I call them Native Americans because they are literally Native Americans, and calling them Indians is literally only ever caused confusion. Anyway, that makes me another trigger point, but it's fine.
Their land, because they're just living in the state of nature. America is a blank canvas, a new world. So by all means, just move in. The people living there, well, they're kind of like animals. Yeah. Cruel to them, but fundamentally, they and their resources exist. Yeah,
that's why it was okay to enslave them. Smile.
In the same way that women exist for men.
Smile.
Just like Pateman said, the reason they weren't at the table was because they were on the menu. And the same thing happened in Detroit. The residents had very little say in what was happening to them or the economic conditions that caused it. Detroit had been declining financially for years because the automotive industry moved overseas and white people fled for the suburbs, which shrank the tax base, so the city had to make cuts.
I was going to say, that's whenever a lot of the Midwest lost a lot.
As emergency financial
manager, I think Appalachia too.
Accountable to anybody. He was the one who just decided to shut everybody's water off. Clearly, this was not a system in which people came together and agreed what to do. They were not at the table, but they were on the menu. The idea behind the water shutoffs was to make it easier to sell the city's public water utility to private investors. The homes that got foreclosed on were sold at auction, which profited Wayne County. Many of them were bought by private investors again, who started demanding that their rightful owners pay rent.
What?
In hell, we wish we thought of that. In this way, we can see
Wow.
that the racial contract
Wow.
has an economic side to it. Scholar Bernadette Atwahane.
I'm gonna read what you said. The glorious white man saved them savages. No, exactly. They were called that because Christopher Columbus thought that they were in India. No, I know. I know. And the fact that people still use it. The fact that I was still using it before I knew that. Guys, if you didn't already know this, I have some bad news for you. Our education system has failed in a lot of ways. I just wanted to be upfront with that about it to you guys. And no, I'm not just talking about America. I'm not just talking about America. Just to clarify. Do I live in America? Yes. Was I educated in Mississippi? Yes. And I received like a relatively average, I would say, education. My schools actually, I think, still are very highly rated when it comes to like test scores statewide. So, oh no, yeah, it is. It like extremely. It's one of the reasons why I find it funny that we even still have Columbus Day on the calendar. Yeah. Like, do I get Columbus Day? Well, I don't get Columbus Day off, but Zealot gets Columbus Day off. And so we always go on a board gaming weekend. And it's always so funny to me because I've had people ask me like, "Oh, what are you doing for Columbus Day weekend?" And I'm like, being an educated person and not even saying his name once. Did you know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the fucking cell? It is. I learned that from Osmosis Jones. That movie is both good and a trip, if you have never actually seen that movie. That movie is... It's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's like 3 different plots happening. Okay, back to I think we're going into the Detroit rabbit hole.
Coins the term predatory cities. Cities that, when they can't pay their bills, start sucking the blood out of their own people. For example, say you're one of the people whose taxes got illegally raised. Well, you could file a complaint with the city about it. But the complaints department has been cut so much that it's now one woman named Linda, and Linda has 15,000 cases. You could scrape the money together somehow and pay it, but you'll have to take a day off work and go across town and queue for 5 hours to pay it in person because there's no online billing. At a certain point, the system becomes a lot better at hurting you than it does at helping you.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's people who are already vulnerable who get hit the hardest. And the racial contract also has a mental side. The technical philosophy word here is epistemological. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. For example, remember that guy in the park who came up to me? He probably thought that he was just being nice. Because part of what the sexual contract does is it blocks men from realizing what they're really doing. If I had said to him, "Can I help you with something? Why are you interrupting me?" He probably would have thought that I was the one who was being rude. Because as a woman, my desire for privacy and security was not just secondary, but almost unintelligible in the face of his desire to control my time and attention. In the same way, Mills says that the racial contract can block white people from realizing what's really happening. Yeah. In Detroit, even after the evidence came out that what was happening was illegal and racist, city officials kept saying, "But just pay your bills." Like They were so invested in the story of the social contract, they couldn't see the truth.
Yeah.
The residents' desire for justice and fairness was almost unintelligible in the face of the city's desire to control their property and their resources.
The federal courts, along with
Yeah.
state and local government, assume the existence of a valid and enforceable contract between Black Detroiters and the city of Detroit, undergirded and protected by civil rights law. However, this contract is a fiction, impossible under the current socio-legal order. Despite formal guarantees to the contrary, we had no right to expect due process, responsive or competent government, dignity, decency, or the basic ability to sustain our lives through the consumption of water.
Now, I never like to tell a client that their case is hopeless. Charles Mills was optimistic that by including more people in the social contract, things could get better. Like, the idea of a system where everyone comes together and agrees what to do is great. You just need to actually do it. There were some people in Detroit who got their water turned back on and their property taxes fixed. It is also possible to overcome epistemological blocks. It's not like one division where everybody's walking around hypnotized. For example, we could apply it to this video. When I was done writing it, I went back and I looked at the script and I realized that I explained Pateman and then Mills. Partly because it's chronological, but partly because, as a white woman, it's easier for me to start with something that I kind of get and then build out. But
Yeah.
that's not true of everybody. That's not a neutral way of presenting things. That's my whiteness affecting how I gather and interpret knowledge. And the fact that I can become aware of that suggests that maybe these blocks can be worked on. But Pateman is less cheery. She says it's tempting to think that if we just include enough people in the social contract, it'll get better. But in her opinion, it's always been built on the exploitation of the people who aren't at the table. She says you can try and listen to a diversity of voices, but diversity often just means that people get a chance to speak, not that they're actually understood or given any power. As your lawyer, I can only tell you what the books say. Which strategy to pursue will be up to you. But hopefully, now that you know the facts of the case, you can make a more informed decision. And speaking of decisions, there is the matter of my fee. Normally, I would take your immortal soul to hell, but patreon.com/philosophytube is where you can sign up to pledge a couple of dollars a month in support of this show. And speaking of shows, I
am pausing it there because she has a play question mark that she's doing. Here, we'll just make this full screen. Okay. Let's see. What do we want to watch? Who's afraid of a gender? Sure, that sounds funny.
The one who dies with the most toys wins.
Look at this amazing demonstration.
I want to feel.
Judith Butler might be the most misunderstood philosopher in the world, so I decided to read as much of her work as I could in 1 month. Actually, I read it in like 4 months, but YouTube videos need narrative now. Butler has been writing for over 40 years about a lot of things, including gender. If you've ever heard the idea that gender is performative, that's them. Their work has also been the subject of huge backlash. In 2017, protesters in Brazil burned an effigy of Judith Butler. Philosophy doesn't usually get that spicy. I must have missed the effigy making class during my degree. Interestingly, the people with the strongest reactions to Butler often haven't understood or even read their work, and now they have a new book about the backlash. Who's afraid of gender? I've deliberately filmed the bulk of this video on a white void background with minimal costumes. Kind of an old-fashioned style on YouTube these days, but I wanted to get across the idea that as controversial as this stuff might be, there's nothing hidden, you're not committing yourself to anything by hearing it, it's just an invitation to listen and consider a different point of view. And really, that's a skill we could all do with practicing, because this philosophy has huge, real-world real-world implications. I was inspired to take this research journey when I read this article in the Washington Post. Students from E.C. Glass High School in Lynchburg, Virginia, applied for a grant from It Gets Better, a non-profit dedicated to kids' mental health. And they got it! They were awarded $10,000 to put a chill-out room in their school, a space with comfy chairs and relaxed lighting to go if they're stressed. Nice. But the school board sent the money back. They said that if they took it, students would have to watch pro-LGBTQ videos, which wasn't true. It Gets Better does focus on helping LGBTQ kids, but the room would have been open to anyone and the grant had no requirements about watching anything. But the board wouldn't listen. The board discussed this for longer than they discussed the literal closure of 2 entire schools in their district, and that stunned me. A school board rejected $10,000 of free money and talked about something that isn't true for so long, it impaired their ability to work. So what happened here? Why couldn't they listen? This polarization is exactly what Butler's interested in. I'll take you through their technical philosophy. Although really, I wish I could just show you, because I'm somebody whose mind has definitely changed on these issues. But it's not like I can just go back in time and talk to my past self.
Wait. Yeah.
Oh my god. These Madeleines are amazing.
Okay, are you good, YouTube? It's like stuttering a lot.
So, you're surprised?
Yeah.
Fair. But how surprised are you really?
You look like Mum.
Right?
You sound different.
Seattle Voice Lab. Look them up. I can turn it on and off whenever I want. Oh my god. So in about 3 years, we have to move flats. And the internet contract is in your name. So when I call to cancel it, they won't talk to me. And I have to say, hang on a minute. I'll go get him and do your voice down the phone.
How did Mum and Dad take it?
Really well, actually. There's this nice moment in about 3 years when you and Dad are going to be out. Actually, I think you're gone by this point. It's just me and him. And we bump into some old family friends, and they're super awkward about it, and Dad's just like, whatever, their problem.
He's not embarrassed.
Why would he be embarrassed?
Were you dressed like this?
I dress however I want. Dude, that's the whole point! The whole thing is so liberating. Seriously, you are gonna love it. Just the freedom to be how you want to be.
I don't want to be like you.
Why not? Let's talk about femboys. At the beginning. Butler's 1988 paper, Performative Acts and Gender Constitution, one of the first things they ever wrote. And right up top, we should acknowledge Butler's academic writing can sometimes be pretty difficult. And that's fair enough. Gender is a difficult subject. Mine took me 2 attempts. What made it click for me is it reminded me of a friend who we'll call F. F is very cool, clever, and funny, and unpretentious, the kind of person who turns up to a fancy restaurant wearing a trucker hat. F is also a femboy. Femboys take on attributes that are typically considered feminine, but they are not themselves women, usually. Femboy is also a genre of online content. F dresses up like a girl and streams himself playing video games. When I first met F, I wondered, is femboy a gender? Well, it's less a thing that you are and more a thing that you do, like a job. And interestingly, because the femboy aesthetic is so shaped by online content, to do femboy in a way that other people will recognize requires you to adopt certain behaviors and stylized practices whose meaning is not determined by you. You can't choose what the trends are, what styles of makeup or dress signal femboy. You've got to learn them and do them if you want to be seen that way. And F works pretty hard at that. If you're very clever, you'll already have guessed where this is going. According to Butler, all gender works that way. In this paper, they say that gender is a thing we do through
Guys, if you didn't know, it's not a joke when people say gender is a construct. It is. It is literally it is something we made up. It is something that we made up definition-wise, and we apply it to ourselves. And we apply it to other things. We apply it to animals. We apply it to organisms. We apply it to all sorts of things. Just like people do with emotions. We came up with words for emotions, and we apply those emotions to animals, even though we don't know if those animals are having the same emotions we are. Now, there is research to basically supply, like, we can tell you that the average intelligence of a pigeon is the same as a 3-year-old human child. That much can tell you that they're going to feel emotions, but they're going to feel what we usually call big emotions when it comes to kids. But the reality is that we were doing that before we had the research to support it. And when it comes to gender has long since been constantly mixed up with sex. And a lot of people tend to think that sex and gender are the same thing. And I don't know why we ended up with that, other than, society not wanting to accept people that are, not conforming. But yeah, gender is literally a construct. Just like time zones. Like, it's yeah. This is definitely going to get more into what I was talking about earlier with, like, the perception and definition societally of things versus the reality of being a gender versus identifying as, being trans, for example, like changing your identity, going from, female to male, or male to female, or female to non-binary,
Repeated, stylized acts. Not a property, but an embodied event. Those acts get their meaning from a social world. So in a way, gender is also a thing that is done to us.
Gender is in no way a stable identity or locus of agency from which various acts proceed. Rather, it's an identity tenuously constituted in time, an identity instituted through a stylized repetition of acts. Further, gender is instituted through a stylization of the body, and hence must be understood as the mundane way in which bodily gestures, movements, and enactments of various kinds constitute the illusion of an abiding gendered self.
You're ridiculous.
Says discount Tom Hiddleston.
Your face doesn't look like me anymore. Did you get plastic surgery on my face?
Well, there's no plastic in me, babes. I'm all natural.
Artificial surgery makes you natural, does it?
At first glance,
Damn.
those ideas seemed a little strange to me. Because we
Oh, wait, YouTube's having a moment.
often talk as if gender is an inner truth. For example, when people change gender and come out, we're often said to be living authentically or being true to ourselves. Even the term coming out implies that there was an authentic self before who was hidden. But according to Butler, there might be no such thing. It's not that I exist and then I choose to perform gender in ways that you will recognize. I can't even form a concept of I without using gendered language and stylized practices whose meaning exists prior to me. Gender is one of the ways that human subjects come into existence. The technical term here is subjectification. And that process happens publicly. Gender creates the illusion of a private self which exists before all of that, but this is just an illusion. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, it has no pronouns. Herein lies the distinction.
I appreciate the
performative and
Dear Evan
performance,
Hansen.
which are often mixed up. When people say gender is a performance, they mean that people exist first without gender, and then they put on costumes or makeup or wigs the way that an actor does. But that's not what Butler is saying.
Yeah, he was talking about performative.
Is a technical philosophy term for when you say something, and by saying it, you also do it. For example, if you say, I promise, you say the words, and you make a promise. If a judge says, I sentence you, they say it, and they do it. When Butler says that gender is performative, they mean it that way. You do it, and you make it so. And indeed, by doing it, you are made so. And people have made fun of Butler for this idea. I've seen people say, oh, Judith Butler says you can just choose to be any gender you want. Oh, men can choose to be women, and women can choose to be baboons, and I can choose to be an attack helicopter.
Yeah.
How silly. But when I actually read their work, I realized that's not what they're saying at all. Our very concept of ourselves as gendered subjects requires a social world. We depend on others for the recognition we need to become gendered subjects. We can still make some choices, wear whatever clothes or makeup you like, but the meaning of those things is not within our sole control. People have been making jokes like that about Butler for decades, even though they address this misunderstanding in their first paper, in the first paragraph. Almost like the people mocking them aren't really listening.
Whoa. That's
There is
crazy.
no volitional subject behind the mime who decides, as it were, which gender it will be today. On the contrary, the very possibility of becoming a viable subject requires that a certain gender mime be already underway.
I didn't come back here to argue with you. I'm trying to help.
I don't believe it. It's a trick.
You were born in Newcastle. Your favorite food is Chinese. Your first crush was named Flossie.
No. You could have tortured me and gotten that information.
What?
Well, I don't know. You could have gotten it out of me somehow in the future.
Just listen to me. We're the same height. We have the same eyes.
Your body's completely different.
Yes! That's the point!
Human bodies can't change that much.
That's not true.
Even if you
That's
are,
not true, buddy.
Let's talk about Kristen Stewart. Next on my reading list was Butler's famous 1990
Human
book,
bodies
Gender
can change
Flop.
a lot.
But it's pretty tough and technical, so we could use a bit of a run-up. We can actually start with this. In March 2024,
Oh,
actor
yeah.
Kristen Stewart appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone, looking... In the interview...
Yeah, no, I agree. She's some
thing you've
I agree.
ever seen in your life. If I could grow a little mustache, if I could grow a happy trail and unbutton my pants, I would.
Later, at the Berlin Film Festival, she added,
The existence of a female body thrusting any type of sexuality at you that's not designed for or desired by exclusively cis-straight males is something people are not super comfy with. And so I'm really happy with it. I had a great time.
A lot of people think that there's a difference between sex and gender. Sex is supposed to be the physical thing, some combination of genes or genitals or gametes, or maybe it's something in your brain, but it's there in the world, and gender is just what we do with it, or at least that's how the story goes. It might be helpful to know something of the history of that idea. For millennia, male-dominated societies exploited women and justified it by claiming that we are naturally inferior. From Greek and Roman philosophers saying that women can't be educated, to Victorian doctors saying that we are too emotional to vote, to today, some people still say women are by nature not equipped to live as equal members of society.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, she could never lead a nation? What if she got a period and started a war?
Yeah.
Misogyny
No,
has
true.
consistently justified itself.
I
by
would
appealing
start
to
a war on my period.
facts about our bodies that are simply made up. If you'd like to know more about the history of this practice, then I really recommend The Once and Future Sex by historian Eleanor Janiger. Into this context comes French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, whose landmark book, The Second Sex, comes out in 1949 and opens with this sentence.
One is not born, but rather becomes a woman.
De Beauvoir challenges this history, saying that whilst there are facts about female biology, male-dominated society also makes a lot of stuff up and claims that the stuff it makes up is facts. The technical term here is naturalization, making something appear natural. For example, women are denied the vote? Well, it's not because we live in an unequal society, it's because the female brain just can't handle it because of biology. So, she says, one is born female, but woman is a socially constructed ideal of subordination that we
Yeah.
are encouraged to embrace and punished for defying. And then, in the 1980s, along come French philosophers Monique Wittig and Michel Foucault, who say this sex versus gender distinction is just another layer of control. De Beauvoir thinks that woman is an oppressive social construct, but female somehow isn't.
Oh,
Human
we're getting
beings
into
are
real
99.9%
feminism
Who does it
here.
serve to split hairs about the remaining 0.1%? Defining one half of the human species in terms of our capacity to carry babies and be fertile and straight, and thereby participate in systems of property and inheritance overwhelmingly controlled by men. Does that sound like a natural distinction? Or does it sound like a political one? Wittig actually says that women should reject womanhood entirely by becoming lesbians, rejecting the patriarchal categories of both woman and female, categories which she says only make sense inside the heterosexual matrix.
Do not try and change sex. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no sex. We've been compelled in our bodies and in our minds to correspond feature by feature with the idea of nature that has been established for us, distorted to such an extent that our deformed body is what they call natural, what is supposed to exist as such before oppression, distorted to such an extent that in the end, oppression seems to be a consequence of this nature within ourselves. By admitting that there is a natural division between women and men, we naturalize history. Not only do we naturalize history, but also, consequently, we naturalize the social phenomena which express our oppression, making change impossible. Lesbian is the only concept I know of which is beyond the categories of sex, woman and man, because the designated subject, lesbian, is not a woman, either economically or politically or ideologically. For what makes a woman is a specific social relation to a man, a relation that we have previously called servitude, a relation which implies personal and physical obligation as well as economic obligation, forced residence, domestic corvée, conjugal duties, unlimited production of children, etc., a relation which lesbians escape by refusing to become or stay heterosexual.
I'm not sure that I personally agree with everything Wittig says, but it's a provocative thought worth listening to. And in Gender Trouble,
Yeah, that's
Butler
interesting.
thinks so too. They say we should question the idea that sex is a natural category. That might sound very out there, but just listen for a moment. Once upon a time, people believed that race was a natural category. They wrote scientific papers about it and measured people's skulls and took blood samples, and they believed that it was real. Nowadays, we know that race is a political grouping that was naturalized, made to look natural, in large part to justify slavery. And we also know that sex was a big part of that. Black women and white women were categorized very differently. So are you certain that the distinction between male and female is as secure as you've been told? Who told you that? Why did they tell you it?
Smile.
And who benefits from you continuing to believe it?
You think that's pussy you're eating now?
This is the artistic space that Kristen Stewart's photo shoot is playing in. The piece, and Stewart's comments, engage in what Butler calls re-signification, giving a new meaning to something. In this case, Stewart's body. The question it poses is, what if this is also female? What does that tell us about the sense or non-sense of gendered categories? But if sex isn't real, then why did I go through all the trouble of changing mine? It's a blunt question, but it's not an unfair one. So, when I finished Gender Trouble, I also read this, Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano. Serrano is a biologist. She believes in what she calls subconscious sex, something in the brain that expects the body to be a certain way. She thinks this would explain the existence of people like me, and also her, whose gender just feels right. It's an interesting idea, and I think it gets to the heart of an intuition a lot of us have to go, well, look, like, physical differences are there. We can see them. Some human beings can get pregnant and others can't. Like, is Butler really saying that all of that isn't real? But then I read the book again, and it turns out that's also a misunderstanding. Butler's not saying that the physical world isn't there, or even that it's unknowable. They're just saying that whatever facts there might be about biological sex, we can only learn them and talk about them through gender. To say the sentence, "My brain expects my body to be female," is to draw on a particular understanding of the word female. And while we're at it, a particular understanding of the meaning of the words my and body that get their meaning from a social world. I've seen some more recent philosophers use the term sex/gender, and even sex/gender/race, and now I understand why. We can't really think about those things separately. It's not that there's sex, the biological reality, and then there's gender on top of it. It's all gender.
It's all gen.
It's all gender? Yes.
Gender?
Always has been.
Always
Physical
has been.
features appear to be in some sense there, on the far side of language, unmarked by a social system. It is unclear, however, that these features could be named in a way that would not reproduce the reductive operation of the categories of sex. In other words, sex imposes an artificial unity on an otherwise discontinuous set of attributes. As both discursive and perceptual, sex denotes a historically contingent epistemic regime. A language forms perception by forcibly shaping the interrelationships through which physical bodies are perceived. The existence and facticity of the material or natural dimensions of the body are not denied, but reconceived as distinct from the process by which the body comes to bear cultural meanings. If gender is the cultural significance that the sexed body assumes, and if that significance is co-determined through various acts and their cultural perception, then it would appear that from within the terms of culture, it is not possible to know sex as distinct from gender.
And then I turned on the news.
Biological sex really matters.
I'm glad you've said what a woman is, because a lot of people were thinking, why can't we say what
I
it is
know.
anymore?
I start with biology.
Yep.
Biology, and obviously there's a distinction between sex and gender.
All right, well, let's can't change sex. Okay, that is a biological fact.
And we shouldn't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be. They can't.
A woman is a human being who belongs to the sex class that produces large gametes.
Not her showing a J.K. Rowling
interesting
tweet.
and positive content on other matters.
I live in England, where a lot of people are talking about sex at the moment. Some say that sex is a fixed point that cannot be changed or resignified or questioned, whereas gender is just a nebulous feeling or a contested belief. I thought all that feminist philosophy was pretty interesting, but it seems some people don't want to listen.
Human bodies can't change that much. Even if you are me, right? Let's just say you are, for the sake of the argument, right? You say you're happy, but what about the version of us from 20, 30, 40 years into the far future? What if they walk in now and say, you made a mistake?
Then I made the mistake you wanted to make.
Better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
The gates of hell are locked from the inside.
What makes me suspicious, right, is you're coming in here going, ooh, everything's wonderful, right? Trying to convince me, but you don't mention any downsides.
Of course there's downsides.
Well, go on then.
Street harassment? Men are going to shout at you in the street. Men push into you and interrupt you. And it's scary sometimes being a woman.
Oop. Good YouTube.
There's this girl called Sarah Everard. She's going to get murdered in 2021 by a police officer. It's a big thing. It's on all the news. And they have a vigil for her in London. Women come from all over the country. And the police beat and arrest the women at the vigil. And you're going to see that and you're going to feel scared because it's like, wow, this is how they treat us.
Were you there?
No. I didn't feel entitled to.
Good. the body we have is threatening. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to be at an event about violence against women.
We're not violent. I mean, we're like tall, but so are giraffes. Bodies are just bodies. I wish I had been there. We need all the allies we can get. I tell you this, you're going to have to go through so much bullshit just to get healthcare, and all of that comes from this place of being like, oh, everybody needs to fit a strict definition, everyone has to be in a little box. That. I'll do what I want and I'll help who I can. Let's talk about feminism. If there is no natural category of sex, then how can we argue for women's rights? That's a question some people are asking, and I'll admit I was curious. I've seen some say that Butler is erasing women, and that in order to protect us from things like discrimination and assault, the law needs a strict definition of woman grounded in facts about biological sex. Thing is, I happen to know, just off my own bat, that that's actually incorrect. For example, suppose an employer denies a job to a candidate named Hillary because they think, oh, women be shopping, women are unreliable employees, application denied. Only it turns out Hillary is Hillary with one L, the candidate is a man. In that case, the employer can still be guilty of sexual discrimination, even though their definition of what a woman is false and didn't even apply. The same principle also goes in crimes like assault. If a straight person gets attacked coming out of a gay club, that can still be a homophobic hate crime if the suspect believes that they're gay and attacks them for that reason.
Yeah.
What matters in law is the suspect's actions and motivations, not whether the victim meets a particular definition. Even though this is a matter of settled law, some people still insist that a strict definition is required. Almost like those people aren't listening. But anyway, wouldn't it still be useful to have some definition of woman, even if we all know it's kind of vague and loose? Could it be useful as a political standard to rally around? I read Butler's 1991 paper, Imitation and Gender Subordination, which is partly about this definition question. They say that defining womanhood has been, and still is, a key strategy of patriarchy. And that's what de Beauvoir was writing about in the 40s. Trying to set an exact definition is always going to be an exclusionary project.
Yeah.
Whereas a certain amount of grey area would be more inclusive. Indeed, they say that any category, like gay, lesbian, trans, femboy, imposes limits.
That's what I was talking about
Trying to
earlier.
make everybody fit one specific box as if they must have some inner self that corresponds to one of them is just a bad idea. And I understood where Butler was coming from there. In Britain, trans people are often expected to tell doctors a certain story about our lives. We're supposed to say, oh, ever since I was a child, I called myself Wendy and wore my mother's dresses, and if your life doesn't fit that narrative, it can be very hard to get medical care. The concept of an authentic inner self that needs to be discovered and verified and checked and meet somebody else's definition is used against us.
Identity categories tend to be instruments of regulatory regimes, whether as the normalizing categories of oppressive structures or as the rallying points for a liberatory contestation of that very oppression. That is not to say that I will not appear at political occasions under the sign of lesbian, but that I would like to have it permanently unclear what precisely that sign signifies. Which version of lesbian or gay ought to be rendered visible, and which internal exclusions will that rendering visible institute? Can the visibility of identity suffice as a political strategy, or can it only be the starting point for a strategic intervention which calls for a transformation of policy? Is it not a sign of despair over public politics when identity becomes its own policy, bringing with it those who would police it from various sides?
I don't know what else to tell you, man. Change is difficult, but it is possible.
This is gonna fuck up our career.
On the contrary.
Well, it's gonna fuck up our love life.
On the contrary.
Well, look, as far as anyone knows right now, I'm a cishet white guy, right? Like, I'm top of the pile. Surely it would be easier to not change.
Oh yeah. Way easier. If you want to be depressed every day of your life and kill yourself at 35.
You know what I mean. Politically, things aren't great in my time. I assume in the future they do not vastly improve.
Let's talk about 9/11 and dicks.
Oh, this is where things
Yeah,
get silly,
okay.
and then they get very not silly. A penis is an organ of the human body.
Really?
It has nerves and blood vessels and skin and so on.
Wow,
Its
I didn't know
primary
that.
function is to allow women who have one to pee standing up if the toilet of the train carriage that you're in is really gross. And it also does some other stuff. Remember what we said earlier? It's not that there's the physical organ and then a bunch of other social constructy stuff on top. According to Butler, we can only know the body through the social world of symbolic meanings. So that particular organ often means power, strength, domination, particularly when used for penetration, and the threat of male violence. That bundle of cultural and symbolic meanings is what philosophers call the phallus. Can a woman have a penis? This question was a fad in British media a year or two ago. Journalists kept ambushing politicians with it and watching them struggle.
Can a
The
woman
legal
have
answer is
a
quite
phallus?
simple. In Britain, you can change your legal sex without surgery because international human rights law recognizes it's probably morally wrong to make a certain group of people undergo expensive, difficult, potentially risky, invasive medical procedures that they may not want in order to do things like get married. So, if you are assigned male at
Crazy
birth,
concept.
you can change your legal sex in Britain and become a woman without surgery. It's not an easy process, but surgery isn't mandatory. If you like your dick, you can keep it. Beyond the legal situation, though, if a person assigned male takes feminizing hormones, then their body will change, and that includes their genitals, which can change a lot more than you might think. In some cases, it essentially becomes a large clitoris, incapable of erection or penetration. And whether you want to call that a female penis or a feminine penis, or whether you think there's not much distinction there, legally and medically, the facts are in. Can a woman have a penis?
Yeah!
People who haven't experienced all that for themselves often don't listen to those who have. Maybe you were giggling when I told you all of that stuff. The idea of a female penis is so unimaginable that it's like a punchline, right? Despite the fact that it is just a normal thing that some people have. It appears funny and unexpected. The idea of re-signifying that, using it differently but not wrongly, not powerful, not for penetration, not even male, appears to be almost a contradiction. Because that bundle of cultural and symbolic meanings has been naturalized, made to seem natural.
Mm.
And this is a very common mistake. We might even call it a fallacy.
Nice.
All of this is deeply funny. Until the second it affects
Government policy, yeah. Until it starts affecting people's
February
lives.
2023, British Justice Secretary Dominic Raab announced that from now on, women who have male genitalia who are arrested will be sent to a men's prison, regardless of what we look like, regardless of whether we have legally changed sex, and regardless of what we are charged with. If, for example, I was arrested at a protest, if I was wrongfully arrested for something, I would be sent to a men's prison. And I'm sure you can imagine, although you may not want to, how that might go. There isn't really any good kind of prison, but this policy makes prison worse for a certain section of the population because of the way that we are born. And in that regard, it's ethically unusual. It's normally a principle of justice that similar crimes should carry similar sentences, but in my home country, the same crime might carry a much harsher prison sentence if you're a trans woman. This discrimination is justified by politicians by appealing to the supposed threat that penises carry. But remember, it's regardless of our crime or what our particular bodies are capable of. And that's quite philosophically interesting. They say that we are a threat, but they are not listening to any actual facts about us.
Yeah.
Since that 2023 announcement, I'd been trying to understand and listen to the Justice Secretary's perspective and work my way through the fear. So, the next item on my reading list was Butler's 2003 volume, Precarious Life. They write about 9/11 and the War on Terror. In particular, the people who were detained indefinitely in Guantanamo Bay by the US government. Terror suspects. And suspects is a key word there, because many of those imprisoned were never given a trial. Some of them were never even charged. The government said those people had to be imprisoned because they were dangerous, but not the kind of danger that they could prove in a trial?
The danger that these prisoners are said to pose is unlike dangers that might be substantiated in a court of law and redressed through punishment. Establishing dangerousness is not the same as establishing guilt. A certain level of dangerousness takes a human being outside the bounds of law, and even outside the bounds of the military tribunal itself, makes that human into the state's possession, infinitely detainable. What counts as dangerous is what is deemed dangerous by the state, so that, once again, the state posits what is dangerous, and in so doing establishes the conditions for its own preemption and usurpation of the law. If a person is deemed dangerous, then it is no longer a matter of deciding whether criminal acts occurred. Indeed, deeming
No,
someone
mine appears
dangerous is an
normal size and
unsubstantiated
function.
judgment that in these
Yeah.
cases works to preempt determinations for which
Strength,
evidence
domination, and
is
penetration.
required.
This girl's fountain
If
of
you're very
t-shirt
clever,
quotes. Yeah,
you'll
it really
already
makes me want to play
realize that
TKO.
when governments call people dangerous in this way, they're using performative speech. They say it, and they make it so. But what's happening here isn't subjectification, it's abjectification. Creating non-subjects, non-people who exist outside the law and who can therefore be treated any way the government likes. And we don't need
Yep, the laws don't apply to them.
trials and evidence for them because they're the bad guys. If they have their rights violated or they die, well,
They
we
don't
shouldn't
have
care about
rights.
that
They
because
don't fit
they
into
were
the
never really
political
alive
system.
in a way that mattered. In fact, if you do care about what happens to them, then that's suspicious. You're not gonna sympathize with the bad guys,
Right?
are you? If you've been watching the news lately, you might be wondering. The people of Gaza keep being killed, but Western governments aren't listening. Is that maybe an example of abjectification? And according to Butler, the answer is yes. They are a long-time supporter of Palestinian rights and have often used their position as a public Jewish academic to call on the Israeli government to meet their obligations under international human rights law. Butler says abjectification is a tool of government in the 21st century that we need to watch out for. When the powers that be say a certain group of people are inherently dangerous, whether they're Muslims or Palestinians or trans people, that's them trying to use performative speech to make that group of people
To make that category
impossible
different.
to listen to.
Yeah.
We become not subjects, but abjects. A problem to be managed against our will in the name of a public good that does not recognize us as part of the public. And I'm not drawing a moral equivalence between those three groups. I'm just highlighting this technique of government, making you aware of it. Because you never know when the powers that be might decide to use it on you.
Yeah, you're right about that. Politics in the future gets weird.
How do you mean weird?
Let's talk about J.K. Rowling.
Ooh, yeah. I love Harry Potter.
We
Oh,
come at
yeah.
last to Butler's new book, Who's Afraid of Gender? In recent years, scholars have been studying the rise of the global anti-gender movement. A network of people, including far-right political actors, religious fundamentalists, and a lot of people who are neither. Sometimes it's a literal network of politicians and activists working together behind the scenes. But sometimes it's more of a loose association. They oppose women's rights, especially abortion, LGBTQ rights, and they strongly oppose trans people. There is a part of the movement that emerged from radical feminism, and that part tends to get a lot of attention, especially here on YouTube. Here's 3 great videos if you're interested. But the movement as a whole is mainly men and supports policies that would harm the vast majority of women. Women play an important role in selling it and helping it appear benign, because protecting women is always good PR, but they aren't the core. The core is the fight against gender ideology. But there's not much agreement on what that actually means. In Eastern Europe, they say that gender ideology is spread by the UN and EU. But in Italy, they say it's spread by African migrants. In Latin America, gender ideology means feminism. But in the UK, they say it's against feminism. In Florida, they say it's gay. In the UK, they say it's homophobic. They say that gender ideology is the new conversion therapy, but some anti-gender organizations are in favor of conversion therapy. Gender ideology is spread by woke students with blue hair and safe spaces, but it's also being pushed on innocent students by wicked professors. Children must not be indoctrinated into gender ideology, and so the government must make sure children believe the things it says about gender. All of this is deeply confusing. The Oxford English Dictionary defines gender ideology as, although gender ideology is a vague term, there are recurring themes in how it
No, she is. She goes through such good outfits.
Gender is in some way
She's so I love her. I love her in general. Like,
unlike biological sex and family
like I
values,
wish
which
I
definitely
had
are natural. Another
I wish I had the time and the patience to actually make videos like this, because I feel like you get to do the silliest shit, and like, can you imagine how good her wardrobe is? Like, she's gotta have costumes for every type of fucking party. Anyway. Yeah, she wears some sick outfits in some of the other ones, though. Oh, yeah, no, the people who are like, we're not the children! That shit always makes me mad. Shit, we have that here in fucking Virginia half the time. It's so funny with Virginia being a purple state. Like, it's really, really regional here. Whether or not they're okay with gay people or not. Or, like, even starting the conversation of like gender ideology. It's very interesting because it's different from Mississippi, because most of the time in Mississippi, wherever you go, it's still very traditional, I would say, still very like religiously based, a lot of schools. But out here in Virginia, I feel like it comes a lot with whenever you have areas of high diversity. So obviously I live not too far from DC, but a lot of times, regardless of what city you're talking about, most of the time the major cities, whether it's like New York, Chicago, Denver, stuff like that, there's going to be a lot more diversity because there's usually an international or national airport. And that also applies to like New Orleans and having, hi Foster. It also applies to New Orleans and like other cities that have ports. In the same way of like, you're having obviously trade going in and out, but with trade going in and out, you're also going to have new people moving in, moving out, etc. And it's very interesting because like, the further south I feel like you get in Virginia, it becomes very like, I don't know. It's not even, I wouldn't even say like redneck, because redneck is if you're going west. If you go to Appalachia and like further out towards West Virginia, a lot of that is what I would call like your typical Appalachia, like country type area. Yeah. Oh my god. Not Automod saying that was like a religious or racial comment. Since when is hillbilly a word that we can't say? Anyway. But like, yeah, that was automodded. But yeah. So it's always interesting because like on this side of the Appalachia, it's pretty tame, I would say. There are still people who, there are still people who are vocal about not liking gay things. And it's very funny to me because, like, when I go on Facebook, for example, I'll see stuff like the local police in Fredericksburg. They participate in Pride Day. They actually escort. There's a Pride parade that they do before the actual festival starts, and the police actually help them parade through the downtown area. And there's a lot of people who will comment on like those Facebook posts and like making fun of them, um, like laughing at them, saying like, "Oh, this is obnoxious," or "You don't need to do this." And it's so funny to me because it's clear that the amount of people in the community who enjoy the Pride Festival, who support the Pride Festival, and who are allies or help run it clearly outweighs that population that is very vocal online, especially about the fact that they don't like Pride. Because the difference I've seen between living in Mississippi and living out here in Virginia is that the difference where I am in Virginia, I have never seen protesters for any of the Pride events. I've never seen any protesters. I have never seen any hecklers or anything like that. Meanwhile, whenever I went to Pride in Mississippi for the last few years, I think the first time I went was 2019, and then I went 2021, 2022, 2023. Or no, 2020. Yeah, no, I went in 2023. Anyway, but the last couple years before I moved out here, every year basically the park was on the side of the road that touched the beach, and it had a pavilion and everything, and there was a little service road that went right past it, like past the pavilion where people could drop stuff off basically. And then across the street was parking. But when I tell you that it was very visible, very flattened ground, there was always a line of trucks at the edge of the sidewalk, not in the grass, not on the sidewalk, but like right as far forward as they could get. And yeah, no, exactly. They would have the signs that say like God hates gays, do you know what you're doing? Turn back from sin, whatever. And they did make exceptions for some people. As long as like there was one pastor that I think I saw maybe 2 years in a row. He was allowed on the premises, and he was presumably preaching against homosexuality, but the thing that really caught my attention was the fact that people were heckling him rather than listening to him. And it was a lot of very young people who looked to be like maybe middle school or high school aged. And I think that kind of, I don't know, like that kind of struck a chord with me, because even though I had issues growing up in the Baptist church as a kid, I have never gone out of my way to pick a fight with people in the sense of religion, because everyone I've met that was homophobic and in the church or active in the church, it was that same issue that I was talking about earlier with racism, where they talk about being homosexual and being homosexual is a sin. But a lot of times those same people can't define to you why it's a sin other than it is. And I think it also goes into that institutionalized thing of like, they don't know anything else and they don't want to know anything else. And it's very hard to come to terms with, because it is frustrating. It's like super frustrating. But at the same time, you have to be the better person in that scenario. Like, you can't just decide that because this person refuses to learn and because they're homophobic, they are inherently not a person, basically. Like, it's okay to harass them, you know, call them names, follow them home, stupid shit like that. Like property destruction type things. So, It says in the Bible not to lay with men, so if I'm standing up while clapping femboy cheeks, God is cool. Understood. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, and the thing is that homosexuality is not, it's not defined in the Bible. There and I don't, and the worst part is, like, I can't tell you as much about it as Zealot could. Zealot knows his Bible very well. I don't. I stopped going to church in, like, middle school, and only recently started going back to church. Meow. Hi. But what? Come up then. Or do you want to come up here? I was drawing. Yeah. But yeah, it's, long story short, Ryder, you're in front of my camera. Boy. Can you, what? You got an hour. You have an hour. Come sit. Boy, come sit. The Bible is thousands upon thousands of years. Yeah, no, exactly. It's translation. There's politics behind the Bible that we literally know about from a historical standpoint. It's yeah. And it's just, generally speaking, it is a very easy argument that a lot of people jump to that honestly just doesn't apply. Because a lot of times it's just an excuse that people use to hide behind. But this is also something that we've seen in history, is the fact that people will use the name of God in order to justify things that are not necessarily godly in behavior. And it's incredibly frustrating because, like, there are good people in this world who are good Christians, but there are so many bad Christians and children of bad Christians or mediocre Christians who have basically created a generation of people who largely hate Christians, regardless of if they are good or bad. They kind of just assume they're bad, and that really throws me off a lot. But yeah, it's the people who bring up the Bible and stuff like that, and like talk about like the purity of children, and it's just really frustrating because those are usually the same people that will get offended if you like tell a kid to call their penis a penis, or you tell a kid to call their vagina a vagina. Like they're the same people that think that like that kind of vocabulary is inherently dirty. Ryder, can you come sit, please? You're right in front of my camera. Come here. You can't sit in my lap right now. Thank you. But yeah. Like the 90% of the Christian VTubers who are all God first and then, yeah! Have the cross emoji, but then their entire timeline is just, yes! Exactly! Like, Ryder. Boy. Ryder. Why are you being a booty butt? What? You have an hour until Din Din. It's not time for food. I love you. He's blocking my camera from tracking. He keeps sitting in front of it. I made him a spot next to me to sit, but he's like, no, I want you to stop drawing. And I'm like, but Ma. But boy. But boy. But boy. Meow. 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 Boy, you gotta sit to the side. Come on. Come on. Here, look, you can sit right beside me. You got your banky and everything. What? Meow. What? I hear you purring. Nah, no, literally. Well, it's also because he gets fed at 6. But it's not 6 yet. You're not 6 yet. Oh, what? I love you. I love you, yacht boy. I love you. I give you a kiss and pet. Your mom. Can I watch my video now?
Is that gender ideologues, whoever they are powerful, commanding your obedience, but also very sneaky, capturing institutions behind the scenes.
You got me with your ear.
And the sneakiness is important because it allows the movement to claim gender ideologues are doing all sorts of nefarious things that they have no evidence for, but the reason they have no evidence is because they're so gosh darn sneaky. Self-victimization plays a huge role here. Another reason there's no evidence is because ordinary people are being bullied into silence by the woke genderists. Sometimes this verges into outright conspiracy theory. There are people in my country, people with serious political and media careers, who claim that our civil service and healthcare are secretly being run by the trans deep state, which, frankly, I wish that were true. The final theme is the danger.
The trans deep state,
Whatever it is, it's a threat to women who are erased and to men who are made weak and helpless, to families and to children in particular who are confused or preyed upon. It's a threat to the nation because you see, gender makes us weak to communism.
Gender makes us weak to communism.
Or capitalism, or Vladimir Putin, or Western influence, or Islamic migrants.
All of the
it's a threat
it makes you it makes you vulnerable.
The authority of God himself. The Vatican has actually claimed that. No exaggeration. Pope Francis compared gender ideology to nuclear weapons. It kind of just means the opposite of how things should be. And the way they should be is whatever you personally want. And that's a very effective strategy because it allows people who previously might not have associated to stand together. The movement features conservative Catholics, men's rights activists, neo-Nazis, New Age types, centrists, liberals, and even some feminists. And it's good at radicalizing them too. Gender ideology seems like such a big threat. It can't be stopped by traditional means. We have to get tough. Much of the blame for starting the anti-gender movement belongs, I'm afraid, to Catholics. Since at least the 1980s, conservative Catholics, both within and without the church, have said that gender ideology threatens the family and God. They use this claim as justification for their extreme authoritarian positions on abortion and queerness. It was Catholics who first started the conspiracy theory that the UN are secretly pushing an anti-Christian gender agenda. The Catholic Church has also claimed several times in writing, without evidence, that gender ideology leads to the abuse of children. An IMAX-level act of projection that might honestly be funny if it weren't so insulting to the intelligence of every human being on planet Earth.
Yeah,
Religion still plays a big role in driving anti-gender sentiment, especially in the Americas and Eastern Europe. In Britain, our version is a little more secular, but that's not the case everywhere. It's just we don't go in for Catholicism as much as we used to. But it would be unfair to lay the blame on all Catholics. Evangelicals are getting involved too, and indeed, some ordinary Catholics might be getting scammed. I have to be careful what I say here. I can tell you that religion also plays a role in how the movement is funded. The Piotr Skarga Association, a Polish group who oppose abortion and LGBTQ rights, have raised millions of euros selling rosaries and pictures of saints to Catholics round the world via mail order. And legally, I can't say that's a scam. Maybe everyone who gives them money knows what they use it for. Maybe when a little French grandma in Toulouse buys a calendar with the Virgin Mary on it, she knows full well that her money is going to an extreme right-wing organization in Poland who are going to send some of it to anti-abortion groups in Brazil and spend the rest on luxury properties. Grandma probably did her research. And she'd have to, because their adverts don't mention it. and Piotr Skarga's financial documents were hidden from the public until journalists broke this story in 2020. Speaking of Catholic crimes, though, the narrative is that gender ideology is being pushed on the good people of the world by shadowy elites who are pulling the strings.
Lizard
And at
people!
this point in my reading, I was thinking, well, that sounds a lot like anti-Semitism. And yes, there are some parts of the movement that are explicitly anti-Semitic. For example, neo-Nazis have criticized Judith Butler for being a Jewish lesbian who invented gender to weaken the West. But then I read this. Anti-Gender Politics in the Populist Movement by Polish scholars Agnieszka Graf and Elżbieta Kolczyk. They say not all anti-genderists are secretly anti-Semitic. The reason they can look similar is because they do similar things. Objectify. Make a certain group of people impossible to listen to.
Though Jews are almost never mentioned in attacks on gender ideology, genderists and especially sexual minorities are consistently Judaized in anti-gender discourse. That is, described in a language strongly reminiscent of conspiratorial anti-Semitism. The link becomes most obvious when Soros
You're
and
being
Butler are
rude,
mentioned,
boy. You
or
got
when the
almost
term
an hour, like
cultural
45
Marxism,
minutes.
notorious for its anti-Semitic subtext, is employed. Like Jews and anti-Semitic attacks, sexual minorities are presented as engaged in a secretive plot. They are scheming, devious, and powerful. To this end, the term homosexual lobby is often used, and the link between homosexuality and cosmopolitanism or rootlessness is persistently made. Furthermore, LGBT activists are routinely accused of sacrilege. Their very presence is said to contaminate sacred events and spaces, while the rainbow flag is seen as offensive to religious sensibilities and patriotic feelings. Finally, like Jews in pre-World War II Eastern Europe, gays are blamed for provoking violent attacks by making themselves too conspicuous.
We're in the eye of the storm a lot. I mean queer people generally, but sometimes us specifically. Sometimes it feels like being under a big microscope.
Do you remember when we were studying theology at university?
Yeah, just about.
We had this one lecturer who taught us about Genesis. Remember, he said, you are created.
You are a creature. Yeah, I do remember that.
I didn't like that word creature.
And we belong to us. We decide what we do.
Well, if God does exist, it seems you've got notes.
That's all very interesting, but it doesn't explain why the anti-gender movement just doesn't listen. Remember back at the start when we learned about the school board who turned down $10,000 of free money? Remember how the same misunderstandings of Butler's work have circulated for decades? Remember the insistence that the law must have a strict definition of women, even though we know that's not true? Remember all those unevidenced conspiracies about the trans deep state and secret UN plots? There's something else, too.
I want to know more about the
Very
trans deep state, man.
The language that the anti-gender movement uses is very actiony. Threat, infiltration, danger, bullying, silencing, censorship, a comparison to nuclear weapons. It's not just that they're not listening. When they're invited to listen, it seems like that makes them feel as if they're under attack. And Butler has an explanation for this.
Meow.
They say that these people are caught in a phantasm. Phantasm is a technical philosophy term for a particular way of misinterpreting the world by projecting your feelings onto it. Philosopher
I did not know that that had a name for it.
That refracts an as-if into an as-so. For example, the presence of a trans person with a penis in a public bathroom makes me feel as if I am under attack becomes I am under attack. People use phantasms to avoid cognitive dissonance in the face of anxiety. For example, literature professor Darren Tenev says we use them to help us confront death. Normally, we don't want to think about our own deaths. It makes us anxious. So when we picture our own funerals and what we would want to happen to our remains, we imagine ourselves as being gone, but also kind of still around. Like, oh, I'd love to be buried somewhere that has a nice view. Well, why? You're not going to be there to enjoy it. By definition, that's a contradictory dream. But the phantasm contains that contradiction and soothes our anxiety. It is as if I will still be there. I will still be there.
What is characteristic of phantasms is that they are placed, and place what could be called the subject of phantasm, on both sides of a border, a boundary, a limit, a frontier. When there is a border, a limitation, the phantasm lets one on the other side, and not only provides a contraband access through the border, but also keeps one on both sides at the same time. There is no logic of the phantasm. The phantasm is phantasm because it allows one to stand on both sides of a border. For example, allowing one to imagine one's own corpse while still being alive.
Like he says, there's no logic to this. It's an exercise in trying to not make sense because you can't handle the conclusions that you would reach if you did.
Ryder!
That's why people caught in a phantasm will throw
Quit!
out all kinds of claims that doesn't really seem like they've thought through or have any evidence for, and when questioned on it, they'll say, "You're attacking me!" Because they're trying really hard to not think something. But what exactly? What is the thing that the anti-gender movement doesn't want to think? Well, it'll probably be different for different individuals. J.K. Rowling has been massively radicalized into the movement in the last few years. She's made a lot of very weird and false claims about trans people and gotten very aggressive when challenged. People have speculated about her trauma maybe causing that, but as a woman who's also survived an abusive relationship, that kind of public speculation has always felt a little bit gross to me. I don't want to do armchair psychology on anyone, even though I'm sure plenty of people would love
Guys,
to
she's
do something like that.
traumatized. She only
It's
hates
just
people because she's
not the philosophy
traumatized,
way.
though.
So maybe we can ask a more general version of this same question. Why are phantasms catching on? And not just about this topic, but all sorts of things. On the previous episode, we talked about 15-minute city conspiracy theories, and there's QAnon, conspiracies about the royal family. Sometimes the way that Zionists talk about Palestinians has a touch of the phantasm about it, as some Jewish scholars have noted. This is a really big issue. And it would be great if we could sort
It's
the whole
not time
gender
to
thing
eat
out,
yet,
because
boy.
we've got a lot of
We've got
real
30
problems
minutes.
to deal with. We don't have time to be fighting imaginary ones.
I mean, I'm glad you're hungry.
Oh. Graf and Korolchuk say there really are a lot of problems in the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are systemic. A lot
Yeah.
of women really are devalued. A lot of children really are living in an increasingly dangerous and warming world. A lot of people really do rely on their families to protect them from big institutions and economic forces that really will trample every tradition and really do dissolve everything into money. According to them, the anti-gender phantasm is an attempt to criticize the effects of capitalism without naming capitalism as the problem. People see the bad results of the system that we have, but they're invested in those same systems, and so the solutions become unthinkable. Their criticisms have to be expressed as a kind of moral criticism. Anti-genderism is the socialism of fools, and the feminism of fools, and the anti-colonialism of fools.
The anti-gender movement is so effective in attracting mass support because it is structured and legitimized as a conservative response to the excesses of neoliberalism. A crucial source of anxiety is the rampant individualism of contemporary culture, the erosion of community, and growing instability of everyday life. Opponents of gender ideology attribute these trends to the influence of feminism.
You're being rude, and it's not time to eat yet.
Anti-genderism conflates gender with those aspects of capitalism that are most frustrating to members of the working and lower middle class, especially the parents and would-be parents, precarity, and the crisis of care resulting from unequal distribution of wealth. Instead of naming the problem in economic terms as injustice and exploitation, anti-genderism presents the world of capitalism's winners as degenerate and morally corrupt.
And here's where we tie it all together and bring it back to Judith Butler.
What boy?
When the anti-gender movement say that gender is an ideology and sex is a fixed point, we now
What?
understand they aren't making
It's
an
not time to
observation.
eat yet.
They're making a demand.
It's not time to eat
When they
yet.
say that you can't have sex,
You can
they
huff at
mean
me. It's not
you
time to
shouldn't
eat yet.
be allowed to.
It's not
because
time yet.
that would be dangerous.
You gotta
Not
wait.
the
You got
kind
like
of
30
danger That is
minutes.
proven with evidence, but the kind they want the state to posit and punish. What they want is morally righteous violence that restores an imaginary order, because they are anxious about real problems that they cannot or will not think about, and so they can only glimpse those problems through the prism of unreality.
The contradictory character of the phantasm allows it to contain whatever anxiety or fear that the anti-gender ideology wishes to stoke for its own purposes, without having to make any of it cohere. Depending on the anxieties circulating in a particular
Writer.
region, gender can be figured as Marxist or capitalist, tyranny or libertarianism, fascism or totalitarianism, a totalizing force, or an unwanted migrant. It is not that people are unmindful of the contradiction and need to be enlightened. No, the contradiction itself is what works, in effect emancipating people from the task of developing a rational position.
Maybe it's because I'm older, but part of the reason I came back is to tell you life is too short to spend it being miserable.
Actually, that's the point. How come you look younger than me?
Because I'm happier. Joy is youthful. Also, we
Writer.
get a really good skincare routine.
I don't want to think about getting older.
You know Mum's fish pie recipe?
Yeah.
There's this really amazing moment that's going to happen when you're 30. You make that fish pie for a friend who's like 23, and you bring it out, and she says, "You are literally my mother." And that is going to be one of the first times you realize that we're getting older. But it's actually nice. Because it's like...
Oh my god, YouTube.
we have knowledge that younger people don't.
Writer.
And it's not like a superiority thing. It's we get to be helpful. We become an auntie. We have little nieces and a nephew, and we help them put on their shoes, and they ask us to tell them about Shakespeare. And I wish I could tell you that it's all going to be moments like that. But you're right. Your future has ups and downs, and it's mainly ups. But the politics is a big down.
Yeah.
Does it get better?
Okay, can you stop fucking whatever this is?
Let's talk about brainworms. Brainworms is a 2024 novel by
Writer.
Alison Rumford about a woman who discovers that several high-ranking British politicians and journalists are being secretly controlled by a contagious parasite that makes them bigoted. She has to uncover the conspiracy, but nobody will believe her because she's working
Writer.
class and trans and maybe imagining it. I like that the worms are never confirmed to be real. We could read them as hallucinations.
Writer.
That ambiguity forces us to
Stop.
engage only with the metaphor.
You're being a
Brainworms
butt
might
butt.
not be real, but hate
Being a butt
is
butt.
infectious, disgusting, and perverse. One character is a famous author who writes books about teenage witches. There's a scene where she infects someone else, coming
Yeah.
close to her victim, worms dripping from her open mouth, and she says a line. And in the movie version, this would be the line that reveals a glimpse of her evil plan, right? But instead, she says, I've seen the future of this country, and it's going to get so much worse. The worms don't make her happy. In fact, they're a kind of contagious misery. Nobody who is infected ever gets better. So, what can we do about all of the things that we have learned today? Well, there's actually two questions rolled into one there. The first is, what can we practically do about the political situation that we're all living in? And secondly, can we convince people who are stuck inside phantasms? So first things first, practically speaking, what can we do? Well, if you've been watching this show for any amount of time, you know that I hate telling people what to do or think, but here's some suggestions, maybe? If you're Catholic and you like buying little medals or rosaries or tchotchkes, if you have relatives who do, maybe older relatives who do, you might like to double check where that money is going. If you happen to work in media, then all of this theory could have some practical applications.
Ryder!
You might like to talk about anti-genderists the same way we talk about anti-vaxxers or climate deniers. For example, Mrs. X says this, which is false. Organization Y claims this, which is pseudoscience. Another thing that you might like to try is using the word cisgender. It was coined in the early 90s. It means not transgender. And the English language anti-gender movement hate it because it implies that trans people and cis people are both worth listening to. It resists objectification by putting us on an even playing field. Kind of like using the word straight or heterosexual instead of saying normal. Beyond that, Graf and Kolschuk say we need to appreciate the fact that right-wing populism is criticizing capitalism, albeit in phantasmic terms. They say we should move beyond the old idea that the left are anti-capitalist and the right are always pro-market. Now, some of them are, to be sure, but not all. They say that these days a lot of people on the right are actually criticizing capitalism, even if they don't use that kind of language. And so, sticking to the same old economic policies we've had for the last 40 years is leaving yourself wide open to those far-right extremists. They also say that LGBTQ stuff and gender stuff can't really be separated from normal politics anymore, because that's how a lot of people are engaging with normal politics these days. The anti-gender phantasm isn't the only thing powering the global right, to be sure, but it's big enough that it can't be ignored. Important lessons there for centrists, perhaps. They recommend a strategy called feminism, which involves tapping into people's emotions in the moment. An example from the UK might be the group Sisters Uncut, who've been very successful mobilizing a broad coalition against austerity, domestic violence cuts, police violence, prisons, healthcare segregation, arms sales to the Israeli government, and many other things, because they recognize that all those forces disproportionately hurt women, and therefore, women can be brought together to protest against them if given the chance to express our feelings of hurt and righteous anger. There's many ways to be involved in a group like that, from actually taking part in demonstrations to donating money, which again empowers a broad coalition. A broad coalition! A coalition abroad!
Coalition abroad! I was wondering if she was going to say that.
Will it work?
Yeah.
Well, join me at the end of the 21st century to see humanity's final scores. And now our second question. Can we reach people stuck in phantasms? Is there a cure for brainworms? Well, to be honest, as somebody who does a lot of public education, I really hate to admit this, but I'm not optimistic that education will work.
Nope.
Butler says that this movement is not only irrational, but anti-rational. Many of the most prominent people in it proudly do not engage with any of the academic material on gender. At the end of my research journey, I realized the reason they don't listen is because they feel that listening is an act of submission.
Yep.
And I can't help it. I think that's really sad.
Yeah.
I really don't want to come across as like patronizing or giving people mercy that they wouldn't give me, but I think it is really sad when people refuse their own complexity, when they refuse to become the person that they might become.
Yep.
If they just listen.
Yeah, it's
indeed
frustrating and sad and yeah.
For Philosophy Tube than the anti-gender phantasm. This show is about compassion and reason and sharing knowledge between equals. It's born out of my belief that thinking and research and
oh my god, YouTube, please.
and writing that they matter. And I'm trans, like this is my final boss fight.
Informed public debate becomes impossible when some parties refuse to read the material under dispute. It is nearly impossible to breach this epistemic divide with good arguments because of the fear that reading will introduce confusion into the reader's mind or bring her into direct contact with the devil. They're skeptical of the Academy for fear that intellectual debates may well confuse them about the values they hold. Their refusal to care much about consistency, to base their criticisms on a reading of the text, their way of snatching phrases and making them into lightning rods, however, are all, finally, a refusal to think critically.
Yeah.
Some individual people do get better. When we first come out, there's going to be people who do not take it well.
Oh,
but
okay. How much is left of this? I need to screenshot what I'm working on. Hagababagwa. And YouTube's having a moment. Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. Ryder? No. 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 I'm not talking to you right now. Because you're being rude. Okay, I'm going to minimize her. Meow. Come on, snipping tool. Meow. Meow, meow, meow. Got your butt. I got your butt. I got your butt. Okay. Meow. Meow. Okay. Give me just a second. I'm gonna move some stuff around. Okay. I'm unscrewing your tripod. Hey. Ever had a girl unscrew your tripod before? Oh, God. Okay. Alright. Damn. Sorry. I'm not intentionally doing all that booby jiggle, but there's a lot going on with the camera that's causing a lot of booby jiggle. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. Lock in, guys. I do want to finish this video, though. Okay. I'm gonna make it full screen. And you know, I'm kind of feeling good. We're gonna see how much Ryder harasses me, though, because I might need to hop off just because of that. Let me check the tracking. She's having kind of a moment, and I think it's because I moved the camera. Face reveal, by the way. I don't know how to say no to this. I don't want to say no to this side. Okay. All right. Let's pull up the Babasabi tube. Go to OBS and go here. And we go big screen. Okay. We're just going to go to just chatting for now. Okay. Move my microphone because it's in the way of the subtitles. And I'm a grandma. I gotta have my subtitles. Oh, here, let me make my display a little smaller so you guys can see. Okay, there we go. All right.
I'm they see that we are happier, and for most of them, that's enough.
I'm scared of changing. No offense.
Understandable.
Yeah, we will change. You keep the good bits.
Are you
Hi, boy.
still making Philosophy Tube in the future? What does the audience say?
I brought them with me.
Hi.
Oh. Hi. Nice to see you all.
That's so sweet.
There's more of them.
A lot more.
Oh. Hi, Bubby.
I love you.
I'm finishing my video. Ryder.
I'd like to end by telling you my hopes for the future. I hope that I will
What is with YouTube? Why is it? Don't paw at my face. Mwah. I'll kiss you. I'll kiss you. Don't do it.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. YouTube. Is it because I'm in theater mode?
I hope that when I am old...
Nope. Is it just the Steam Deck? I'm so confused.
I will still be cooking the way that my mum taught me. And that I will...
Oh my god. Ryder. I see you. It's not time to eat yet, bro. It's not time to eat yet, bro. I don't know what this issue is.
I will have the wisdom of my dad. I hope that my nieces and my nephew grow up into good and happy people. I hope that I will see younger people have opportunities that I didn't. And I hope that I won't be too jealous. I hope that I will be acting and making art for the rest of my life. I hope that this is not the cleverest or the most compassionate that I will ever be, but that I will continue to change. Because the only people who don't change are the dead.
Yeah.
Speaking of changes, I've been doing Philosophy Tube for 11 years now. Some of you have been
Damn.
here that whole time. And I don't know if you realize it, but you have changed my life. Off YouTube, I'm a professional actor. YouTube kind of blew up first, but it's always been separate from my acting career. Until I wrote a play called The Prince, which a lot of you came to see, so it did really well. And then I got cast in Baldur's Gate 3. And then I got cast in Star Wars.
Oh my god.
And then I got cast in something that's even bigger than Star Wars that I'm not allowed to tell you about yet. And the
Bigger
engine
than
of
Star
all of
Wars.
this has been you. I used to think that I would probably have to leave YouTube behind someday to focus on acting. But now I realize that because of you and your lovely enthusiasm for all of the things that I make and that I'm in,
Oh.
I now realize we can combine YouTube and acting.
If we
into something
combine
more
our
powerful than
powers.
either one can be alone. So then I was like, okay, I want to write a short film. And I did. It's called Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend. It's about two vampire chicks in LA being horrible to each other. I pitched it to a streaming service called Nebula. I said, hey,
Hi.
I've got this big audience and we already had
Mwah.
success with my play. Do you maybe want to do a movie? And they said yes.
Oh, that's
Once
awesome.
Again, you have changed my life. Do you know how many actors would kill to have a streaming service pick up their debut film? I'm going to be in it too. My co-stars are Morgana Ignis and Brandon Rogers from Hell of a Boss, one of the biggest shows
Oh, that's
in the
awesome.
world. and you will be able to see the film when it comes out at go.nebula.tv/Dex. And
Oh, that's cool.
because Nebula isn't just another streaming service. Imagine that you had a role in a show on Disney Plus, say, I don't know, Star Wars The Acolyte. Well, you do the job and you have a great time, and at the end of the day, you go home. Star Wars belongs to Disney. But on Nebula, the people who create the thing own the thing. I wrote
Oh, that's
Dracula's
cool.
Ex-Girlfriend, so I keep the rights. They're giving the creators more power.
Oh, that's
And
really good.
Even better, if you all go and get Disney Plus to watch Star Wars, then that's really cool, but the creators of the show don't get like a bonus or anything. However, if you get Nebula using that link specifically, then I get a cut. And you...
I don't know what is up with like this flickering. Though this is my first time watching YouTube on the Steam Deck, so
get a discount. $2.50 a month with an annual subscription.
Oh,
so
that's
I
cool.
help you, you're helping me, we are helping each other. And there's even more! If you want to see the full scene that we shot for this
Rider.
episode without all the video essay bits in between, that's on Nebula too. Every episode of Philosophy Tube goes up there early and uncensored. Lindsay Ellis is on there, Legal Eagle's on there, H. Bomber Guy's on there. They're making a whole bunch of documentaries now. They're making a sci-fi movie directed by Jesse Gender that I'm gonna be in. It's called Identities. It comes out in June. If you get Nebula, you can see all...
For context, this video is from 2 years ago, if you guys didn't see. I looked at it.
Of that, we are
So all this stuff is already out.
combining
Hi, boy.
YouTube and acting, and we are unlocking the power. You and I have had a lot of fun over these last 11 years.
I don't know what is up with the glitches.
The next step is Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend. And after that... wait and see.
Man, those NDAs. Pesky NDAs. It's awesome, though. Hi, boy. Okay, well, my son is protesting that it is dinner time, and apparently has decided he's going to bat everything off of my desk until I feed him, when in reality he has an automatic feeder. But it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and end stream here. I know that we did a lot of yapping, but it kept me busy for most of the day, and I haven't had like... I had some cereal before I got on, but I'm gonna try and eat some pizza for like dinner. I'll probably work off stream a little bit. Maybe go downstairs and make some jewelry. I've been getting into documentaries recently. If you are not in my Discord and did not see, the Earth, Wind, and Fire documentary is absolutely phenomenal. You should go watch it if you have not, if it's on HBO. Honestly, I would be cool organizing a watch party in my Discord for it. But yeah, so it's really good. And then after I watched that one, I didn't realize that Billy Joel's had already come out, which was also really cool. But his documentary is split into two different things. Like, I think they just call them episodes. They're about 2 hours each. And I almost finished the first one, but to be completely honest with you, the pacing in the Billy Joel documentary is not as good as it was in Earth, Wind, and Fire. In Earth, Wind, and Fire, they had a lot of different people that they interviewed that were very highly energetic. They went in chronological order and had reactions from people like Lionel Richie, Obama, Michelle Obama, and other people that had worked with Maurice White in Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I did pause it, and I will probably continue it later today. But it is interesting, and I'm learning a lot about Billy Joel. I knew that he was East Coast based, but I didn't know much about the fact that he apparently moved out to California early on in his career. so it's been interesting to see like the differences and hearing kind of the testimonies of people that lived around him and how he didn't really fit into the California scene, because I feel like that's something that I identify with, like even though I'm not from like the northeastern area, I feel like I am still very like East Coast minded rather than West Coast. Um because I'm very, in general, like I'm very work oriented. I want to have community, but like I don't know. A lot of times people on the West Coast are portrayed as very like lackadaisical. Um and I just don't identify with that. I'm very much a workaholic. But yeah. So I'm probably going to finish that and I'll let you guys know how that is. I've been enjoying it so far, like I said. It's just not as it's not as good at balancing the boring parts with the fun parts. But you know, you also have to keep in mind it was also made while Billy is still alive versus the Earth, Wind, and Fire one that just came out. That one was made after Maurice had already passed, because I think he passed back in 2016. Um, yeah, it's different. It's different, and it's something that like I was talking to Zealot about with you know, having the interest of, you know, the difference between people and um the difference between films or documentaries made while people are still living and have a say so or an influence on the piece versus ones that are made after they've passed away, because it's clear that a lot of people have reverence for people who have passed away and don't want to speak ill of the dead. um but it's also this weird line of a lot of people are more comfortable talking about it once people are gone. um which I feel like applies very largely to like how a couple years ago they came out with the Beatles documentary that was actually filmed around their last concert, their last live concert that they had in person. And it was because of a mixture of reasons, basically like the tapes getting lost and people thought that they were corrupted, as well as like copyright issues about who owned the material, um and having to find a way to bridge the gap technologically between the 60s 70s tapes and making that into obviously a modern film fit for um all of the digital, you know, digital platforms we have now, like Disney Plus. um if you haven't watched that, that's also another good musical documentary. Is about the Beatles. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it's the most recent Beatles documentary, and I know it's on Disney Plus. It's about 6 hours total. I want to say it's broken up into 3 or 4 episodes. And it just goes into the details surrounding like the dissolvement of the band and kind of that downfall that a lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people talk about John and Yoko, and while that is a part of it, it play the film, since it was previously not released footage, it showed a lot of that discomfort that was clearly there um between the people of the band, you know. But yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I'm gonna put you guys on my ending soon screen and find somebody to raid out to. I appreciate you guys for stopping in today, chatting with me. I know it was a little different than my other co-working streams, but sorry. I think that was good for me emotionally. I tend to get really in my head on days like this, and so being able to kind of like do kind of like a critical thinking type thing and engage, I feel like really helped me kind of force myself out of that negative headspace where I'm just like, I'm just gonna curl into a ball. But yeah. I plan to be live again tomorrow night. I am gonna be playing Goblin Cleanup with Sky or Aurora. And Mama Zealot and Zealot should be playing Wizard 101 tomorrow as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then I'm planning on doing a stream Friday. The Cobblemon server will not be up yet by the time we stream on Friday. So we're probably going to be doing maybe Goblin Cleanup or Fortnite or something just in the meantime. But there will definitely be a lot of Cobblemon next week. This weekend and next week, probably, honestly. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you guys soon. See you tomorrow. Bye.